Chapter 1377. After Confucius' explanation, Yi Guqin and the others had a basic understanding of the Dark World and Sky Burial Island. Next, they went straight to Borderline Mountain. Borderline Mountain was located in the far west of the Nantian region. Because it used to be a forbidden area, it was desolate and uninhabited. However, this deathly silence was broken not long after. Many ships sailed across the sky. Young geniuses from various forces stood on them. They were all dignified, high-spirited, and eager to fight. The battle on Sky Burial Island was not only an internal battle in the Nantian region, but also a battle with the geniuses of the Dark World. It would be a big stage. Anyone who could perform well would become a celebrity in the Nantian region. Those geniuses who had not joined the Overlord-level forces would also be recruited by the Overlord-level forces. Therefore, none of the geniuses dared to underestimate this battle. That's the fleet of ships from the Sword Dynasty. Is that the famous Yi Guqin? Many people from different forces turned their gazes to a ship. It was the ship Yi Guqin was on. Yi Guqin defeated Nangong Ju Yun not long ago and became the young master of the artifact sect. I wonder how he will perform this time. Yi Guqin is the best in the Holy Emperor realm. However, with Di Haotian and the others here, Yi Guqin might not even be able to keep his life, let alone show off. Many people were discussing spiritedly. Yi Guqin ignored the discussions of the outside world. At this moment, he looked into the distance. He could vaguely see a towering mountain at the end of the sky. It seemed to extend into the void. He could also see spatial turbulence in the void. Sky Burial Island is located in the void of Borderline Mountain. You can teleport to the island through some teleportation formations, Confucius said. Yi Guqin nodded slightly. Soon, the ships of many forces approached Borderline Mountain. Brother Yi, you're here. At this moment, a hearty voice sounded. Yi Guqin looked over and saw that it was the war god Empire's Zhao Shinkong. Brother Zhao. Yi Guqin nodded slightly. He and Zhao Shinkong had long since turned hostility into friendship. Not to mention, Zhao Xiaodi was still by his side as a maid. Perhaps because of this relationship, the conflict between the Sword Dynasty and the War God Dynasty eased a little. Although it wasn't to the extent of immediately becoming friends with him, the smell of gunpowder was no longer as strong. A short moment later, the group from the Mola Dynasty arrived as well. Duguqiu Mo stood in the wind, his snow-white hair fluttering in the wind. His devilishly handsome face was expressionless. He did not greet Yi Guqin because he was a sharp sword hidden in the darkness. This sharp sword would be completely unsheathed on Sky Burial Island, and the world would know about it. It was hard to imagine what kind of shock and uproar it would cause when the news that Duguqiu Mo was Yi Guqin's clone was leaked. Not long after, the groups from the Luo Fu Sword Pavilion and the Misty Sword Pavilion arrived as well. Jun Xiaoyao was dressed in white and looked extraordinarily handsome. He nodded slightly at Yi Guqin. As for Yi Tsangyue, she also greeted him symbolically. She still did not know how to face Yi Guqin. It seems that Yi Guqin still has allies. He's not fighting alone. Many people thought to themselves when they saw this scene. Most people thought that Yi Guqin would not be able to walk out of Sky Burial Island alive. However, it was not certain that he would die. Why bother greeting a dead man? At this moment, a cold snort was heard. The group from the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion had arrived. Huang Qianqiu's purple hair fluttered in the wind, and his purple eyes shone with divine light. It was breathtaking. He was handsome and had the heavenly desolate combat body. He looked like a god of war. At this moment, Huang Qianqiu looked at Yi Guqin as if he was looking at a dead man. He had always wanted to obtain Yi Guqin's ultimate sword domain technique. However, he had never found a suitable opportunity in the Sacred Emperor world. He would not miss this chance to go to Sky Burial Island. Huang Qianqiu, Yi Guqin did not avoid his gaze. Yi Guqin had already lost his patience with this enemy who had always been thinking about him. If there was a chance, he would not mind having a life-and-death battle with Huang Qianqiu on Sky Burial Island. At this moment, a lady's voice was suddenly heard. I didn't expect you to be Yiguchin, the one who killed the 7 great bears of the Starry Sword Pavilion. Seeing is indeed better than hearing about it 100 times. Yiguchin frowned when he heard the voice. Not only him, but many people also looked in the direction of the voice. On the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion's airship, there was a tall and slender woman in a purple dress. Her purple dress was glowing and fluttering in the wind. Her face was fair and translucent, and her purple eyes were clear. She seemed to be surrounded by a purple aura. The first impression everyone had when they saw the lady was noble. It was as if she was born with a sense of superiority, as if she was a descendant of the heavens. However, it was not the lady's temperament or appearance that was shocking, but the aura that was faintly emitted from her body. Am I mistaken? The 9th level of the Divine Dwelling Realm? How is this possible? When did the Starry Sword Pavilion nurture such a genius? The entire place was stunned. Many martial artists from various forces widened their eyes. The most famous geniuses of the Starry Sword Pavilion were the 7 great bears, and they had all been killed by Yiguchin. But now, another heaven's favored daughter had appeared. It was truly shocking. However, not everyone was unaware of it. Some people from the overlords were not too surprised. They had known about it for a long time. Have the true geniuses of the Starry Sword Pavilion begun to show themselves? I wonder if the 7 great bears have shown themselves, Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself with a frown. The Ziwei Star Maiden was not simple. It was rumored that she had the Ziwei Emperor Star. Such a fate was the sign of an emperor. Although Jiang Ziwei was a lady, it did not weaken the power of her fate. At the same time Jiang Ziwei appeared, Dugu Qiuma frowned. That was because he had the Tiansha fate. Strictly speaking, such a fate clashed with the Ziwei Star fate. One was the Tiansha fate, and the other was the Emperor Star. I thought that the Starry Sword Pavilion would have no one after Gu Xiaoyang and the 4 young Star Lords died. Who would have thought? Yiguchin sighed secretly. As expected, an overlord-class force wasn't that simple. He could also feel that Jiang Ziwei's strength was even stronger than Gu Xiaoyang's. However, she had been hidden by the Starry Sword Pavilion and had not shown herself before. It was only now that the 7 great bears had died that she came out to support them. Gu Xiaoyang and the other trash are dead. I'm a little curious. How strong are you? Jiang Ziwei's beautiful eyes sparkled as she sized up Yiguchin. She did not show any hostility. She did not even care that Yiguchin had killed Gu Xiaoyang and the others. She was just curious. Chapter 1378. The way Jiang Ziwei looked at Yiguchin now, there was no deep hatred. After all, the 7 great bears had nothing to do with her. They were the resources of the Sons of 7 Stars. The ones who really hated Yiguchin were the Sons of 7 Stars, not her. If the Star Master had not warned her to deal with Yiguchin on Sky Burial Island, Jiang Ziwei would not have given up. Jiang Ziwei might not have attacked Yiguchin. Hearing Jiang Ziwei's words, Yiguchin said indifferently, "Curiosity kills the cat. If you're curious about me, you'll have to be careful of your life." Hearing Yiguchin's words, many of the Sky Prides present were speechless. Jiang Ziwei was a top Sky Pride of the Starry Sword Pavilion who was comparable to the 1 Emperor and 4 Sovereigns. It could be said that there were not many Sky Prides present who were qualified to talk to Jiang Ziwei, let alone threaten her. However, Yiguchin did not care at all and directly threatened her. Jiang Ziwei was slightly stunned when she heard that. Then, she curled her lips and said, "You're really as arrogant as the rumors say. In that case, we'll see what happens at Sky Burial Island." Jiang Ziwei did not say anything else. As a Sky Pride who had been hidden for the first time, she naturally had her own arrogance. She believed that as long as she was willing to take action, she could suppress Yiguchin. The 7th Star Master and the others had also arrived and were sitting cross-legged in the void. He also did not say anything because after Sky Burial Island ended, Yiguchin would definitely die. With the arrival of the 4 great sword pavilions, the atmosphere became more and more heated. At that moment, someone saw the ship in the distance and exclaimed again, "The people from the overlord families are here." Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. They saw the Dongfang family's team first. That young man in a golden robe who is emitting light should be the top sky pride of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Guangyao. Yes, one of the 10 great childs, child Tong Tian, is extremely powerful. However, before everyone could exclaim, the Nangong family, Shimen family, and Baiming family's teams arrived together as if they had made an agreement. On the Nangong family's side, Nangong Juyun was also present. When he saw Yi Guqin, his face was covered with a layer of dark clouds. The humiliation divine artifact sect had suffered was still fresh in his mind. Nangong Juyun's expression is truly terrifying. Of course. If it were you, the position of young sect master that should have been within your grasp was snatched away by someone else. Furthermore, it was a complete defeat. Would you be willing to accept that? Everyone at the scene whispered to each other in whispers. On the side of the Shimen family, the leader of the younger generation was a fatty with a big belly. This fatty was fair and tender, and the fat on his body swayed like waves. His 10 thick and fat fingers were covered with origin rings, and he looked like a nouveau riche. That must be the genius of the Shimen family, the Fugue young master, one of the top 10 young masters, Shimen Fugue. Some people said when they saw the fatty. Shimen Fugue was also a weirdo. Although he was one of the 10 great childs, his combat strength was the lowest among them. His only specialty was his good luck. It was rumored that he had the noble star fate and was born with great luck. Wherever he went, he could pick up treasures and find hidden treasures. The origin ring on his finger contained all kinds of divine weapons and treasures. Because of this, although his actual combat strength was not high, with all kinds of divine weapons and treasures, he did not need to fear any genius. At this moment, Shimen Fugue's bean-sized eyes glanced at Yi Tsangyue of the Misty Sword Pavilion. Fairy Tsangyue, I'll give you this divine tribulation weapon protective pendant. Shimen Fugue looked at Yi Tsangyue with his beady eyes and a lecherous expression. Shimen Fugue was also one of Yi Tsangyue's suitors. Seeing Shimen Fugue casually give away a divine tribulation weapon protective pendant, many people were dumbfounded. The world of the rich was indeed different. However, Yi Tsangyue did not even look at Shimen Fugue. It was as if she treated him like air. Sigh, I originally wanted to give my heart to the moon, but the moon shines on the ditch. Shimen Fugue looked up at the sky and sighed sadly. If a handsome young master had said this, it would have made some sense. However, with Shimen Fugue's pot-bellied appearance, it was comical no matter how one looked at it. As for the Baiming family, the leader was a young girl in tight clothes. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail, and she had a pretty face. Her beautiful eyes were long and narrow, and she had a cold and sharp aura. The Baiming family was famous for their ghostly movement techniques and deadly martial arts. The 2 king sword techniques that Yi Guqin had obtained previously, god slaying and deity slaying, came from the Baiming family. That must be the genius of the Baiming family, Baiming Xing. She's ranked 8th on the Dragon Phoenix list, she's not weak at all. Many voices were heard. Baiming Xing, was considered a famous genius in the Nantian region. The Dongfang family. Baiming Xing, snorted inwardly as she looked at the Dongfang family. The Baiming family and the Dongfang family had a long-standing feud and had always been at odds. Therefore, the geniuses of the 2 families had always been fighting both openly and covertly. Previously in the Saint Origin dynasty, Yi Guqin had been mistaken by Dongfang Ziyun and the others for being from the Baiming family because he had used the god-slaying sword technique. However, the geniuses of the Dongfang family did not pay attention to the Baiming family at this moment. They all looked at Yi Guqin. Dongfang Guangyao said in a playful tone, "Is he Yi Guqin? He's the one who killed the Dongfang family's people." Dongfang Ziyun nodded and said, "Yes, it's him." On the other side, Yi Guqin also noticed Dongfang Ziyun. "It's her." If Dongfang Ziyun had not appeared, he would have almost forgotten about her. This woman was definitely a vicious person. In order to survive, she did not hesitate to kill her companion, Dongfang Hong. After that, she pushed everything to Yiguchen, which led to the feud between the Dongfang family and Yiguchen. It could be said that without Dongfang Ziyun, the feud between Yiguchen and the Dongfang family would not have developed. Thinking of this, Yiguchen's eyes were filled with coldness. Are you Yiguchen? You killed the Dongfang family's people and almost killed Sister Ziyun. You better pray that you don't run into me on the burial island, Dongfang Guangyao said calmly. Yiguchen's performance in the Saint Imperial world was outstanding and he had even killed Gu Xiaoyang. However, Dongfang Guangyao was also one of the older geniuses. He was not afraid of Yiguchen. Ha, you don't even know that you've been used as a tool. Why don't you ask the person next to you who killed the Dongfang family's people? Yiguchen sneered. Yiguchen, what are you talking about? Are you still trying to deny it? Or are you afraid of Brother Guangyao? Dongfang Ziyun's eyes flashed as she scolded. Chapter 1379. After such a long time, Dongfang Hong was already dead and there was no evidence. Dongfang Ziyun thought that she had nothing to worry about. No one would know about what she had done. Except for Yiguchen. However, it was obvious that Dongfang Guangyao and the others would not believe Yiguchen. As long as Dongfang Ziyun insisted that Yiguchen had killed Dongfang Hong, Yiguchen could not do anything to her. That was indeed the case. Dongfang Guangyao sneered, Yiguchen, haven't you always been arrogant? Are you trying to use such a childish method to absolve yourself? Dongfang Ziyun's eyes flashed with coldness and pride, Yiguchen, no matter how you defend yourself, it's useless. Your ending will not change. Yiguchen shook his head slightly. His expression did not change at all because of Dongfang Ziyun's words. I don't care what you say. In front of absolute power, all schemes are useless. Inside Sky Burial Island, just prepare to die, Yiguchen said indifferently. As soon as he said that, all the cultivators from the surrounding forces were stunned. Yiguchen was openly threatening to kill the Dongfang family. Yiguchen, how dare you? Dongfang Guangyao scolded coldly. As the top genius of the Dongfang family, no one dared to threaten a member of his family in front of him. Dongfang Ziyun originally wanted to mock and ridicule Yiguchen, but when she saw Yiguchen's frosty eyes, her heart began to throb for no reason. It was as if Yiguchen could really kill her. No, that's impossible. Yiguchen can't even protect himself in Sky Burial Island. How can he kill me? Dongfang Ziyun muttered as if she was comforting herself. At this moment, many forces had gathered outside Two World Mountain. At this moment, there were black clouds in the distance, and black warships were flying over. It's the demonic sect. Seeing this scene, everyone cried out in alarm. At this moment, at the bow of the demonic extermination sect's ship, a young man in a black robe stood with his hands behind his back. His appearance was handsome, but his skin was pale, as if he hadn't seen the sun for a long time. His eyes were pure black, like two black holes. As he stood there, he looked like a demon lord. It's one of the four emperors, Hades' emperor, Holy Yama. Upon seeing this figure, an uproar broke out in the surrounding area. The outstanding talents of the four sovereigns had extremely important statuses. In Sky Burial Island, they could be said to be the mainstay of the main force. They were the only ones who could resist the war and calamity stars and the heavenly talents of the dark world. As for Witch Wan, she was standing on another warship. As soon as the Holy Yama arrived, his gaze locked onto Duguchimo. A wave of hostility spread out. Are you the one who Duguchio the one whom Wan has high hopes for? The Holy Yama's voice was cold. Holy Yama. Dugu's expression remained unchanged. He also knew that if he wanted to obtain the Demon Extermination Heart Sutra of the Demon Extermination Sect, he would need Witch Wan's help. In this way, he would definitely clash with the Holy Yama. There was no doubt about the Holy Yama's strength. As one of the four emperors, he was on the same level as Huang Qianqiu. However, Duguchuma wasn't afraid at all. After all, his temperament was extremely cold and he didn't have the emotion of fear at all. I'm warning you, give up as soon as possible. Otherwise, Sky Burial Island will be your grave, the holy Yama said indifferently. Princess Luo Ho looked worried when she heard this. Duguchuma was expressionless. He said indifferently, if you have the ability, you can try. Sensing the thick smell of gunpowder, some of the martial artists from the various forces faintly revealed a trace of worry on their faces. The battle on Sky Burial Island this time was a battle between the heavenly talents of the South Horizon region and the Dark World. If the heavenly talents of the South Horizon region fought seriously, it would obviously affect the overall situation. Just as everyone was extremely worried, people from other forces arrived in the distant sky. They were the Heavenly God Sword Sect and the Battle God Saber Sect. On the Battle God Saber Sect's side, Dao Wumeng and Gu Zun were both there. On the Heavenly God Sword Sect's side, Chu Xuanzhen and the others stood at the bow of the ship. Behind them, there was a golden dragon ship. There was no doubt about the person sitting on it. Di Haotian is here. Many exclamations sounded from all directions. There were also many heavenly talents with traces of reverence and admiration in their eyes. As one of the 1 emperor and 4 emperors, Di Haotian's strength was undoubtedly the best in the entire South Horizon region. Under Di Haotian's brilliance, even Chu Xuanzhen, who had been in the limelight in the Holy Emperor realm, dimmed a lot. Many people present once again cast their gazes on Yi Guqin. The feud between him and Di Haotian had spread throughout the entire South Horizon region. It was the topic of many people's leisure conversation. As the only existence who could seriously injure Di Haotian, Yi Guqin was now the focus of attention. Phew, Yi Guqin let out a deep breath. Had this day finally come? On the side of the Heavenly God Sword Sect, Wen Donglu and the other saints were also there. However, he just looked at Yi Guqin coldly and did not say anything. With Di Haotian involved, the result was obvious. Chu Xuanzhen stood straight and looked at Yi Guqin, saying, I didn't expect that you would really dare to come to the burial island. Where is Di Haotian? Won't he come out and meet me? Yi Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile. Meet him? Ha, do you think senior brother Haotian has the time to deal with you? He will be the pillar of the South Horizon region on the burial island and compete with the heavenly talents of the Dark World. Why would he care about an ant like you? Chu Xuanzhen's words were as sharp as a knife. Ha! Do you not care, or do you not dare? Yi Guqin said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura comparable to that of a celestial palace venerable spread out from the golden dragon ship. That power was as if he was facing a god. This pressure, the celestial palace venerable realm? As expected, Di Haotian has taken that step long ago. He is ahead of his peers and has reached the honorable realm. As soon as this aura was released, it was like a meteorite falling into the sea, setting off huge waves. Among the younger generation, very few people could reach the venerable realm. Even the 4 emperors wanted to find an opportunity to break through to the venerable realm on the burial island. However, Di Haotian had already broken through. How could they compete? It's over, it's over. I thought that with Yi Guqin's current strength, he could barely fight with Di Haotian. Now, it seems that it's completely impossible. Yes, the gap between the major realms is too big. It's impossible to make up for it easily. Yi Guqin is in danger now. After learning that Di Haotian had broken through to the venerable realm, many people looked at Yi Guqin with pity in their eyes. Yi Guqin's expression did not change at all, but his eyes narrowed slightly. With Di Haotian's talent as a 10th grade supreme talent, it was not too surprising that he had broken through to the venerable realm. An aloof and indifferent voice came from the golden dragon ship. An ant who once relied on external objects to luckily hurt me is now qualified to be presumptuous in front of me? Chapter 1380. Hearing this indifferent voice that was like that of a god, the hearts of all the sky prides present trembled slightly. This was the extraordinary confidence of a 10th grade supreme talent. He could look down on anyone of his generation. Even Yi Guqin, who had just created a miracle in the Holy Emperor realm, was not taken seriously by him. "Ha, you can try again this time." Yi Guqin did not lose his composure. After all, he was cold and arrogant. Di Haotian's words could not anger him. And if Di Haotian was still so arrogant and conceited, in the future, Dugu would definitely teach him a lesson. Sensing the intense tension in the air, all the Sky Prides present felt a sense of solemnity. In this battle on Sky Island, the South Horizon region would be in internal strife before they even met the talents of the Dark World. Seeing this, Elder Qing Song of the Luo Fu Sword Pavilion stepped forward and said, "You have to understand that this battle is a battle between the South Horizon region and the Dark World. Although there are grievances between you, I suggest that we unite against the outside world first." Old man Qing Song's words made many important figures from various forces nod their heads. Indeed, the Dark World was a great threat to the South Horizon region. If the talents of the South Horizon region failed in this battle on Sky Island, the consequences and impact would be very far-reaching. Yi Guqin did not say anything. Although he valued friendship and righteousness, he was not the kind of person who was completely righteous. It was impossible for him to give up dealing with Di Haotian and the others for the sake of fighting against the Dark World. At most, in the early stage, Yi Guqin would not take the initiative to kill the talents of the South Horizon region. Of course, if Nangong Jueyun, Chu Xuanzhen, Dongfang Ziyun, and the others wanted to deal with him, Yi Guqin would definitely not show any mercy. "Well, since almost everyone is here, let's go in," an elder of an overlord force said. All the talents of the South Horizon region present rushed toward the Two-World Mountain. In the void above the Two-World Mountain, there was a spatial turbulence flowing. Vaguely, there seemed to be a huge island in the depths of the space, which was filled with an ancient and desolate aura. Is that Sky Burial Island? The closer he got, the more Yi Guqin could feel the wild and savage aura of Sky Burial Island. As expected of one of the Forbidden Lands, Yi Guqin was suddenly curious. Where were the three great Forbidden Lands of the South Horizon region? Why did the three hidden forces guard the three great Forbidden Lands? However, these secrets could only be explored in the future. Around the Two-World Mountain, there were some ancient teleportation arrays covered in dust. After activating them with heaven crystals, they could teleport the geniuses of the South Horizon region to Burial Sky Island. However, because the teleportation array was old, the destination of the teleportation was uncertain. Even if a group of people used the same teleportation formation, they could be teleported to different locations on Sky Burial Island. Soon, Yi Guqin and the other prodigies of the Sword Dynasty landed on a teleportation array. "Brother Yi, the entire Burial Island is divided into 4 islands, East, West, South, and North. Our South Horizon region occupies the East and South Islands. The Dark World occupies the West Island and the North Island. Do we need to gather together then?" Jian Jingheng asked Yi Guqin. Because Yi Guqin was now Jinkui of the Sword Dynasty, he should be the leader. Hearing this, Yi Guqin thought for a while and said lightly, "This teleportation array is not stable. If you are teleported to the West Island and the North Island, you will be in danger. How about this? No matter where the prodigies of the Sword Dynasty are, we will gather on the South Island. As for what happens after that, we will plan it later," Yi Guqin said. "Okay." All the swordsmen nodded. Including Yi Guqin, many prodigies of the South Horizon region stood on different teleportation arrays and activated them with heaven crystals. The teleportation arrays began to burst into blazing brilliance, and the space trembled like water waves. The figures of Yi Guqin and the others twisted, and then they disappeared from the spot. On the other side, Dugu, Chuma, and Princess Luo Ho also stood on a teleportation array and were directly teleported away. The prodigies of the South Horizon region were constantly being teleported to Burial Island. As for which of the 4 islands of the East, West, North, and South, that was up to fate. At this time, Di Haotian also walked out of the dragon boat. His whole body was shrouded in brilliance, as if the Son of God had come to the world. If my investigation is correct, there is a mechanism key hidden in each of the 4 islands. As long as I can get the 4 mechanism keys, I can make the real core of Burial Island appear. And the earthly sovereign sword may be among them. Di Haotian thought to himself. For him, nothing was more important than getting the earthly sovereign sword. Because as long as he could get the earthly sovereign sword, he would have gathered the 3 swords, heavenly sovereign, earthly sovereign, and human sovereign. At that time, the 3 swords would become one, and the primordial sword, the 3 sovereign sacred swords, would appear in the world. Compared to finding the earthly sovereign sword, dealing with Yiguchen was not an important matter. Therefore, after entering Burial Island, Di Haotian's main focus would be on collecting the 4 mechanism keys. As for dealing with Yiguchen, he could leave it to others. Xuanzhen, I'll leave Yiguchen's matter to you. I still have important things to do, and Yiguchen is not worth my time, Di Haotian said indifferently. Yes, Senior Brother Haotian. I will not accept your request. Chu Xuanzhen cupped his fists. He was one of the top 10 childs, and he had the Sword King body. Other than Di Haotian, he was not afraid of anyone. He was confident that he could even suppress Yiguchen. Di Haotian nodded slightly and stepped into the teleportation array. Next, almost all the prodigies of the South Horizon region were sent away by the teleportation array. At this moment, 4 maids in blue suddenly appeared in the distance, carrying an ice palanquin. In the palanquin sat a young girl with long, icy blue hair. When they saw the palanquin appear, many of the people present revealed a look of bewilderment. Could it be that the people from that place are here? Yes, it's the people from the Sealing Heaven's Sacred Ocean, but it seems that they have never intervened in the Battle of Burial Island, right? I vaguely heard that the people from the Sealing Heaven's Sacred Ocean came this time to deal with the Heaven Weeping Witch from the Dark World. I see. If the Heaven Weeping Witch fully matures, she can indeed create endless killing and even cause a catastrophe in the South Horizon region. Many of the surrounding forces were discussing. The young girl with long, icy blue hair had already walked out of the palanquin. Her skin was as white as ice and snow. She was tall and slender, and her pupils were icy blue. She was very beautiful. There was also a faint chill lingering around her. The Heaven Weeping Witch should not exist in this world. And my karma, who has it? The young girl muttered in her heart and stepped into a teleportation array. Many of the surrounding warriors were secretly speechless. Not only did this young girl come from the Sealing Heaven's Sacred Ocean, but she was also one of the 4 emperors. If she made a move, the Heaven Weeping Witch from the Dark World would be in great danger. Chapter 1381. Sky Burial Island used to be one of the forbidden areas of the Nantian region. Although it was no longer a forbidden area and had become a stage for the young geniuses of the 2 camps to fight, the eeriness and strangeness had never disappeared. This was a grayish-brown barren land surrounded by dark clouds. In the void, a ripple spread out, and Yiguchen's figure appeared. Did they really separate? Yiguchen looked around and found that Jian Jinghong and the others were not around. He was not too surprised. If it were an ordinary genius who encountered a situation of being alone on Sky Burial Island, he might be very nervous. However, Yiguchen was very calm, not to mention his strength. Even in the 2 camps of the Nantian region and the Dark World, he could be regarded as a top genius among the younger generation. Therefore, as long as there were no accidents, Yiguchen could protect himself. After checking the surrounding environment, Yiguchen took out a special crystal. After injecting his genuine qi into it, a light curtain spread out. It showed the general layout of the entire Sky Burial Island. There were also many dense light spots scattered on it. These light spots represented the geniuses of the Nantian region. Through the light spots, it could be seen that most of the geniuses of the Nantian region had been transmitted to the East Island and the South Island. Only a small number of unlucky geniuses were transmitted to the West Island and the North Island of the Dark World. Yiguchen was one of them. Am I in the West Island now? Yiguchen's expression didn't change at all. Even though he knew that he was in the enemy camp, his expression didn't change at all. With his strength, it wasn't too difficult for him to return to the East Island and the South Island. To be honest, in the entire Dark World, only the War and Calamity twin stars and the four magnates could pose a threat to him. As for the other geniuses, Yiguchin didn't have to be afraid of them at all. Yiguchin didn't have to be too afraid of the 7 bullies or the 13 gangsters. Therefore, Yiguchin was not in a hurry. He decided to start investigating Sky Burial Island. On this barren land, the wind was chilly, and there were white bones of unknown creatures on the ground. The sky-burying island was a very peculiar existence. It seemed like it was located in the South Horizon region, but it wasn't in the South Horizon region. It was located in the crevice of space. In the South Horizon region and not in the South Horizon region? A light flashed through Yiguchin's heart. He suddenly remembered what had happened in the Heavenless Sword realm. That mysterious consciousness clone, the young girl Ah Sang, had once said. Her true body seemed to be in the South Horizon region, but also not in the South Horizon region. Could it be that Ah Sang is related to Sky Burial Island? Yiguchin wondered. He recalled that Ah Sang had said that her body was in the same place as the Earth's Sovereign Sword. Didn't this mean that the Earth's Sovereign Sword might be on Burial Sky Island? After coming to this conclusion, Yiguchin was also quite surprised. He hadn't expected that Sky Burial Island could actually have such a secret buried there. At this moment, Yiguchin's sea of consciousness suddenly flickered with a fluorescent light. It was the light of consciousness that Ah Sang had given him. With this light, Yiguchin could find Ah Sang's true body. No wonder Di Haotian did not seem to have much interest in attacking me. It turns out that his main objective was to come to Sky Burial Island to find the Earthly Emperor Sword. Yiguchin finally understood. To Di Haotian, the Earthly Sovereign Sword was more important than anything else. No wonder he was not in a hurry to deal with Yiguchin. Looks like Di Haotian must have gotten wind of some news. He'll definitely try his best to find the Earth's Sovereign Sword, and I can't let him get the Earth's Sovereign Sword. Yiguchin's eyes were filled with determination. If Di Haotian really managed to collect all 3 swords, Su Jianshi wouldn't be the only one in danger. Di Haotian would also condense the Tri-Emperor's sacred sword, and his strength would soar to an unimaginable level. However, if the Earth's Sovereign Sword is really that easy to find, it would have already appeared by now. Di Haotian wouldn't be able to find the Earth's Sovereign Sword in such a short time. I can make use of this time to make some preparations. After Yiguchin made up his mind, he felt a little more pressure in his heart. He moved in the direction of the South Island. This was because he, Jian Jinghong, and the other Sword Sons had agreed to gather at the South Island after arriving at Sky Burial Island. After about half an hour, Yiguchin still didn't see a single shadow. Looks like Sky Burial Island covers a huge area, Yiguchin thought to himself. Just the West Island alone was like a miniature continent. One could imagine the size of the entire Sky Burial Island. At this moment, a few black shadows suddenly appeared in front of him. Are they the Sky Prides of the Dark World? Yiguchin was on guard and looked over. However, to his surprise, those black shadows weren't human. They were like human-shaped fog, wearing a pitch-black helmet, armor, and so on. It was like an empty armor shell that was filled with black fog. Could they be living creatures from the Dark World? Yiguchin's eyes turned serious. Before they came to Two Boundaries Mountain, Confuzi had warned them. Although Sky Burial Island wasn't as dangerous as the previous Forbidden Land, there would still be some living creatures from the Dark World. Confuzi had already told Yiguchin and the others about the possible living creatures from the Dark World that they might encounter. This thing should be the so-called Een Demon God, Yiguchin muttered to himself. In the Dark World, there were also many clans. For example, the Soul-Devouring clan, which was the origin of Duga's talent in seeking demons, was a clan that was quite powerful in the Dark World. The Een Demon God in front of them was also a living creature from the Dark World, but it was more ordinary. This kind of Een Demon God had great resistance to physical attacks. They seemed to be strange creatures that had been formed by merging dark soul power with all kinds of battle armor. When Yiguchin discovered the Een Demon Gods, Yiguchin's expression changed. The Een Demon Gods had obviously discovered Yiguchin. At that moment, they pounced on him like vengeful spirits, releasing soul sound waves at the same time. Such soul sound waves would shatter the sea of consciousness of some ordinary skyprides who didn't have any spiritual items protecting their sea of consciousness. However, Yiguchin didn't do anything. The Yin demon god's soul sound waves blasted into Yiguchin's sea of consciousness, but it couldn't cause any harm to him. The Yin demon gods were obviously shaken as well. Under their helmets, 2 spots of ghostly fire flickered like eyes. It's my turn now. Yiguchin raised his hand and the 9-colored profound bomb spread out. To the Yin demon gods, physical attacks weren't very effective. Only the power of extreme yang, such as lightning and flames, could effectively kill them. To deal with the Yin demon gods, Yiguchin didn't need to use his chaos divine flame. Therefore, he only used the 9-colored profound bomb. Soon, with a few sharp cries, the Yin demon gods turned into ashes. Helmets, armors and other items fell to the ground. At that moment, Yiguchin noticed that something was rolling out from the armors. This is... Yiguchin was surprised. Chapter 1382. The thing that rolled out from the armor was a crystal-like crystal. There seemed to be a wisp of mist flowing inside. Could this be a demon soul crystal? Yiguchin muttered. Before coming to Burial Sky Island, he had learned about the creatures of Dark World. Because the Yin demon god was formed from dark souls, it would drop a crystal called the Demon Soul Crystal after it was killed. It was said that the crystal was very helpful in cultivating one's soul. It was Yiguchin's first time getting it. He picked up the crystal and felt a pure soul power. Yiguchin thought for a while, then activated his chaotic sea of consciousness and tried to absorb the soul power. To Yiguchin's surprise, not only could the soul power in the crystal be absorbed, it also seemed to be helpful in shaping the soul palace. It has such an effect. It was out of Yiguchin's expectation. He finally understood why Burial Sky Island was the best place for some geniuses to break through to the honorable realm. Putting other opportunities aside, the crystals that were obtained after killing the Yin demon god were enough to allow one to break through to the honorable realm. Although these creatures from the dark world are strange, from another perspective, they might be a kind of treasure. Yiguchin collected the demon soul crystals that were dropped by the Yin demon gods. As Yiguchin was in the chaotic sea of consciousness, it was more difficult for him to break through. Hence, the few demon soul crystals were far from enough for him to form the soul palace. Moreover, Yiguchin had already planned to break through after cultivating his spiritual dwelling into a world's spiritual dwelling. Hence, he only needed to collect resources now. Then, Yiguchin went on his way to meet the Yin demon gods and collect the demon soul crystals. What made Yiguchin slightly disappointed was that although there were quite a few creatures from the dark world on Zhangtian Island, they were not everywhere. After a few hours, Yiguchin only met a few Yin demon gods. Just as Yiguchin was feeling disappointed, he suddenly sensed the fluctuations of an intense battle ahead of him. Yiguchin's eyes flashed. His figure flashed as he approached a withered tree. He looked into the distance and saw 2 figures being besieged by dozens of Yin demon gods. That's a prodigy from the dark world. Yiguchin's eyes narrowed. The 2 figures were both men. One of them was tall and thin, and the other was dressed in a black robe. His skin was pale, and he looked like the impermanence of the underworld. The other man was dressed in a red robe and wielded a long spear. His attacks were ferocious. Both of their cultivation were around the 6th layer of the divine dwelling, and their strength wasn't weak. However, what they were facing were dozens of Yin demon gods that were immune to physical damage. Hence, it was not easy to deal with them. That tall and thin man with pale skin should be one of the 13 gangsters of the dark world, Gue Wuchang. The other red-robed man with the long spear is also one of the 13 gangsters, Yang Hong, Yiguchin murmured. He didn't know much about the dark world. However, the South Horizon region had some information about the prodigies of the dark world. Yiguchin had also read it carefully. These 2 were among the 13 gangsters. The 13 gangsters of the dark world are comparable to the prodigies on the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region. They are not weak, Yiguchin thought to himself. If an ordinary prodigy from the South Horizon region were to encounter the 13 gangsters, he would definitely avoid them as far as possible. After all, the prodigies who could stand out in such a cruel place like the Dark World were not easy to deal with. Their combat experience and strength were even stronger than the prodigies on the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region. However, this was no pressure for Yiguchin. The prodigies of the two worlds were divided into 4 levels. Ordinary level, dangerous level, extremely dangerous level, and Tebu level. With his current strength, he might not be able to suppress Di Haotian, but he could at least contend with him. In this way, Yiguchin's strength should be comparable to the Tebu level. Although Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong were the 13 gangsters, they could only be considered as dangerous level. The gap between them was not small. Therefore, Yiguchin did not have any scruples. He just hid in the dark and observed. If they were prodigies from the South Horizon region who had no enmity with him, Yiguchin might help them. However, since they were prodigies from the Dark World, Yiguchin did not have to take action. He could just watch from the sidelines. When the snipe and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. As time passed, Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong finally killed the dozens of Yin demon gods. Ha, we have obtained dozens of demon soul crystals again, Yang Hong laughed. This is nothing. I heard that someone found a Yin Wind Demon Valley in the North Island. It seems to be a lair of the Yin demon gods, Gue Wuchang said in a hoarse voice. Yin Wind Demon Valley, Yiguchin, who was hiding in the dark, heard this and his eyes flashed. He made a mental note of it. At this moment, Gue Wuchang seemed to have sensed something. His pale face suddenly turned to Yiguchin. He waved his hand and his genuine chi burst out like a waterfall. Who is it? With a loud bang, the withered tree was smashed into pieces. Yiguchin's body flashed and revealed himself. You are, from the South Horizon region? Both Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong were surprised when they saw this. This was the West Island, the territory of the Dark World's prodigies. Even if some of the South Horizon region's prodigies were unlucky and landed in the West Island, they should be hiding like rats and on tenterhooks. However, at this moment, Yiguchen's expression was calm and composed. This caused Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong to raise their guard. Yang Hong took out a jade slip and checked it. He frowned slightly and said, "Why is there no record of this person?" If there is no record, it means that this person is not famous in the South Horizon region. Gue Wuchang narrowed his eyes and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. It turned out that the Dark World's prodigies and the South Horizon region's prodigies would collect information about each other's prodigies. For example, Yiguchin recognized them at a glance. They were Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong of the 13 gangsters. The Dark World naturally had some information about the South Horizon region's prodigies. If Jun Xiaoyao, Chu Xuanzhen, Huang Qianqiu, and the others were here, they would know who they were at a glance. However, Yiguchin was different. What really made him famous in the South Horizon region was the Battle of the Sacred Emperor Realm. It was also after the Battle of the Sacred Emperor Realm that Yiguchin was named Sword Young Master, one of the top 10 young masters. Counting the time, it had only been a little more than 20 days. It was for this reason that Yiguchin's information was not known by the Dark World's prodigies. At least, most of the Dark World's prodigies did not know. Hee, so you are a nobody. Yang Hong was completely relieved. At this moment, Yiguchin's aura was restrained, and he did not look like a prodigy. He was also not like Di Haotian and Huang Qianqiu, who carried a shocking aura wherever he went. It was difficult for others to ignore him. Do you know who we are? Gue Wuchang's lips curled into a cold smile. The 13 gangsters, Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong. Yiguchin's tone was indifferent. He could tell from the two's attitude that the Dark World's prodigies did not seem to know that he was one of the top 10 young masters. In other words, Yiguchin was now a nobody in the eyes of the Dark World's prodigies. He was like a cannon fodder. This was getting more interesting. Chapter 1383. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so calm after knowing that we're the 13 gangsters, said Yang Hong. I'm not the one who should be nervous, said Yi Guqin. Well, what do you mean? Yang Hong raised his brows. Gue Wuchang shook his head. Don't talk nonsense. Just kill him. No matter how small a mosquito is, it's still meat. You can get 10 points, said Gue Wuchang coldly. The rules of the Dark World and the Nantian region were similar. Killing an ordinary prodigy was worth 10 points. Killing a dangerous class prodigy was worth 1,000 points. Killing an extremely dangerous class prodigy was worth 10,000 points. Killing a forbidden prodigy was worth 100,000 points. In the eyes of Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong, Yi Guqin was at most an ordinary prodigy. Even if they killed him, they would only get 10 points. Yi Guqin's lips curled into a smile. The 13 gangsters are dangerous class prodigies. I should be able to get 2,000 points after killing the two of you. Hearing Yi Guqin's words, Yang Hong and Gue Wuchang were stunned. They thought that there was something wrong with their ears. You're courting death. Gue Wuchang did not say anything else. His strength of the 6th layer of the divine dwelling stage erupted. He stretched out his hand, and a pitch-black chain broke through the wind. Its tip was as sharp as a dagger, and it emitted a cold light. When Yi Guqin saw this, he immediately raised his hand and grabbed the black chain. Are you courting death? Seeing Yi Guqin's action, Gue Wuchang's pale face revealed a sneer. However, before the mocking smile could spread from the corners of his mouth, he saw an unbelievable scene. Yi Guqin caught his chain with his bare hands. Then, his arms suddenly shook, and a 9-colored thunderbolt burst out, rushing along the chain toward Gue Wuchang. Gue Wuchang's face turned pale, and he hurriedly protected his body with his qi. Boom! There was a thunderous explosion, and Gue Wuchang was sent flying. His entire arm was charred black, and his flesh was torn open by the 9-colored thunderbolt. Yang Hong was completely dumbfounded. This was because the aura that Yi Guqin exuded had reached the 7th layer of the divine dwelling realm in that instant. Who are you? Yang Hong's face suddenly changed. If he was really a very famous 7th level divine dwelling heaven pride, it was impossible for the Dark World not to know. You're just a dead man. Why do you need to know my name? Yi Guqin said coldly and flicked his wrist. The 9-dragon thunder prison sword fell into his hand. Its blade was cold, and it was bursting with the power of lightning. Using the divine movement secret technique, he appeared in front of Yang Hong in a flash. The first move of the divine sword thunder controlling art, myriad thunder transformations, was performed. Tens of thousands of sword rays and lightning bolts burst out from the blade like a surging tide of thunder. Yang Hong hurriedly raised his spear to block, fully erupting his 6th layer divine dwelling cultivation. But with just one strike, Yang Hong was sent flying, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Both Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong were aghast, looking at Yi Guqin as if they had seen a ghost. They were all part of the 13 gangsters. Even among the sky prides of the Dark World, they were considered top-notch. But now, in the face of this black-robed youth, they felt a deep sense of despair and powerlessness. Damn it, no wonder he can walk around the Western Island without fear. It turns out that he is so powerful. I misjudged him. Yang Hong's face was full of dark clouds. Gue Wuchang's face, which was already pale, was now as white as paper. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that when he came to Sky Burial Island, the top heaven pride of their force had once said. In the South Horizon region, there seemed to be a newly risen Sword Dao heaven pride. He was extremely powerful and had displayed his skills in the sacred imperial world. And that heaven pride had once seriously injured the top heaven pride of the South Horizon region, Di Haotian. Thinking of this, Gue Wuchang looked at Yi Guqin again. Dressed in a black robe and using a sword as a weapon, he completely matched the description of that heaven pride. Are you Yi Guqin? Gue Wuchang couldn't help but ask. Oh. It seems that the Dark World is not completely unaware of my news. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows slightly, his face indifferent. These words were undoubtedly an acknowledgement of his identity. What, you're one of the 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region, soared young master Yiguchin, who once seriously injured a forbidden-level heaven pride. When Yang Hong heard Yiguchin admit his identity, he felt dizzy, as if the sky was about to collapse. A heaven pride of the 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region was someone that only the 7 bully lords could contend with. The 13 gangsters could contend with the heaven prides on the Dragon Phoenix list of the South Horizon region, but it was difficult for them to contend with the 10 great young masters. Not to mention, the person in front of them was not just an ordinary 10 great young master. He was a terrifying existence that had once seriously injured Di Haotian. Even in the dark world, Di Haotian was quite famous. Almost all the heaven prides in the dark world knew him. Di Haotian was almost the top heaven pride of the South Horizon region. The young man in front of them, who could seriously injure Di Haotian, had the combat strength to injure a forbidden-level heaven pride. This was what made Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong tremble in fear. They were not like the 4 bully lords or the 7 bully lords. Not to mention the forbidden-level war and calamity twin stars. Let's go. Without the slightest hesitation, the 2 heaven prides, Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong, turned around and fled in different directions. Do you think you can escape? Yiguchin would not let them go. Yiguchin raised his sword, and vast thunderbolts surged out. It was the 3rd move, Divine Annihilation Heavenly Punishment. Rumble. The power of the 9-dragon thunder prison, coupled with the 9-colored profound thunder, and the divine sword thunder control technique, poured out in all directions. Both Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong were affected. They turned around to block, but their bodies shook violently, and they spat out a large mouthful of blood again. Yiguchin continued to move forward with his sword. Sacred Sword Trifecta, Universal Annihilation. The Qian-Yang Absolute Sword and the Kunyu Absolute Sword merged into one, turning into a sword ray that could cut through heaven and earth. Yang Hongchuan had no strength to resist and was cut in half with a scream. Then, Yiguchin turned around and attacked Gue Wuchang again. Yiguchin, there are people from the Rakshasa sect among the 4 great leaders and the 7 bully lords. If you dare to kill me, you will not be able to walk out of Burial Sky Island. Gue Wuchang let out a sharp scream. Ha! Ridiculous, there are too many people who use this to threaten me. Yiguchin did not hesitate at all and killed Gue Wuchang directly. He took out a crystal from his origin ring. This crystal had many functions, and every South Sky region heaven prides had one. Not only could it be used to look at the map of Burial Sky Island, but it could also be used to calculate the score. Soon, Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong's names appeared in the crystal. Then, the words, 2,000 points, appeared. Not bad. Yiguchin nodded slightly and took out more than 100 demon soul crystals from Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong's corpses. The demon soul crystals were obtained from the Yin demon god that the 2 of them had killed. Now, Yiguchin had benefited from them. As for the other things, Yiguchin was not interested. Is the Rakshasa sect a force in the dark world? Yiguchin muttered to himself. Little did he know that the moment he killed Gue Wuchang. In another part of the western island, a figure shrouded in a blood-red robe seemed to have sensed something. Gue Wuchang is dead. Chapter 1384. The figure, who was shrouded in a blood-red robe, had a very powerful aura. He had reached the 7th level of the divine dwelling realm. The blood-red aura around him seemed to have turned into numerous blood snakes that twined around him. There were several other figures beside him, who were also very powerful. They were all top heaven prides of the dark world. What's wrong, Shui Yunzi? A heaven pride asked. Nothing, Gue Wuchang of the Luo Sha sect is dead, the heaven pride named Shui Yunzi said in an extremely indifferent tone. Oh, although Gue Wuchang's strength is not top-notch, he is still one of the 13 gangsters. How did he die so quickly? The other heaven prides of the dark world were all surprised. The burial island had only been opened for a few days. It was reasonable to say that only some cannon fodder would die. The 13 gangsters were not cannon fodder. I'm not sure, but he should have been killed by a Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region, and that Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region is on the West Island. Shui Yunzi narrowed his eyes, which were filled with blood-red light. Interesting. He killed a Heaven Pride of the Dark World openly on the West Island, which is occupied by our Dark World. Isn't he afraid that he won't be able to leave the West Island? The other Heaven Prides of the Dark World said in a playful tone. Shui Yunzi said coldly, it's very simple. That Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region is either a fool, or he is very confident in his strength. Even on the West Island, he is not afraid of being surrounded by the Heaven Prides of the Dark World. Ha, interesting. Is that Heaven Pride of the South Horizon region Di Haotian or one of the 4 emperors? Hearing Shui Yunzi's words, the surrounding Heaven Prides of the Dark World burst into laughter. Forget it, let's take action. Although Gue Wuchang's death is not a big deal, we still have to get back at him. Shui Yunzi slowly raised his hand. Blood-red qi twined around his wrist like a snake. Shui Yunzi was one of the 7 overlords of the Dark World. On the other side, after killing Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong, Yi Guqin continued to fly in the direction of the South Island. What kind of existence is the Luosha sect? Yi Guqin thought as he walked. His understanding of the Dark World was limited to what Confuzi had said. The entire world of darkness was made up of 7 Saint Emperor worlds. The reason why it was called the Dark World was not because these 7 Saint Emperor's worlds were especially dark and cruel, but because they were on the opposite side of the South Horizon region. Moreover, the Dark World had always been hostile to the South Horizon region, which was why they had such a name. However, although Yi Guqin was not clear about the Rakshasa sect's situation, he could also figure out that the Rakshasa sect must be an extremely powerful force in the Dark World. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to cultivate heaven's favorites like the 4 little giants and the 7 little conquerors. Before Gue Wuchang died, he had said that there were people from the Luosha sect among the 4 tyrants and 7 tyrants. I wonder if Shui is here. Is she and the master of the bloodthirsty tower, Shui Yiqing, also from a certain power in the Dark World? Is Shui one of the twin stars of war and calamity? Yi Guqin had a lot of doubts in his heart. However, with Shui's heaven-weeping witch physique, she should at least be a heaven's chosen on the same level as the Big 4. Just as Yi Guqin's mind was filled with various thoughts, a sharp screeching sound suddenly pulled him back to reality. A group of strangely shaped creatures appeared in front of him. They were shaped like squid or octopus, completely black and suspended in the air. Their sharp tentacles were barbed, and their ring-shaped mouthparts were also covered with white bone spikes. Such terrifying creatures were definitely not seen in the South Horizon region. These are neo-demons? Yi Guqin's mind focused slightly. On Sky Burial Island, neo-demons were the most common creatures of the Dark World, just like the Yin demon god. Moreover, they could produce demon soul crystals just like the Yin demon god. These neo-demons could also condense something called the soul-nurturing source in their bodies. Just like the demon soul crystals, this soul-nurturing source was extremely helpful in shaping the soul and soul palace. However, unlike the Yin demon god, neo-demons had a temperament, which was to form in groups. On Sky Burial Island, there was a terrifying disaster called the Neo-Demon Tide. If one was caught in such a tide of neo-demons, not to mention the ordinary prodigies, even the prodigies on the Dragon Phoenix list or the 10 Great Childs would be in danger of death. Right now, there were about 40 to 50 neo-demons in front of him. To Yi Guqin, they were not much of a threat. Yi Guqin did not hesitate and directly attacked. He wiped the blade of the 9-dragon thunder prison with one hand, and the colorful chaos divine fire burned. The dozens of neo-demons also discovered Yi Guqin. They immediately let out sharp screeches and charged at Yi Guqin. Barbed sharp tentacles pierced through the air, enough to pierce through spiritual inscriptions. Yi Guqin's sword swept out, and the chaos divine fire spread out. The neo-demons immediately let out painful screeches. The power of lightning and fire was extremely effective against creatures like the Yin demon god and neo-demons. In less than 15 minutes, the dozens of neo-demons had all turned into charred corpses. As for Yiguchin, he began to dissect the corpses of the neo-demons to produce soul-nourishing essences. As long as I collect enough demon soul crystals and soul-nourishing source, I will have a greater chance of breaking through to the honorable realm, Yiguchin muttered. At that moment, the screeches of neo-demons came from the front. Yiguchin raised his eyebrows and muttered to himself, as expected, there are more than a few dozen neo-demons. His figure flashed, and he went forward cautiously. At a glance, there were more than 1,000 neo-demons surrounding a figure. The chubby, rotund figure was currently using one divine weapon after another to block the attacks of the neo-demons. That person is Shimen Fugue. Yiguchin raised his eyebrows. Shimen Fugue, the pride of the Shimen family, had the noble star fate. He was known as the Fugue young master, and could be considered a weirdo among the 10 great childs. Shimen Fugue's battle strength was near the bottom, but his luck was extremely good, and he had many weapons that increased his strength. Didn't they say that Shimen Fugue's luck was good? Why is he in danger now? Yiguchin shook his head slightly. He never believed in fate or luck. He only believed in the sword in his hand. Furthermore, Yiguchin and Shimen Fugue did not know each other, so he had no reason to help. At that moment, Shimen Fugue seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze turned towards Yiguchin. When he saw Yiguchin, Shimen Fugue's eyes lit up with joy, and he suddenly shouted. Could it be Sword Young Master Yiguchin? Please help me. Yiguchin shook his head slightly and prepared to retreat. Shimen Fugue saw Yiguchin's actions, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He shouted again. Brother Yi, please wait. I found a neo-demon lair. If Brother Yi helps me, I can take you there. You will definitely gain something. Shimen Fugue's words made Yiguchin stop in his tracks. A look of interest appeared in his eyes. Chapter 1385. Originally, Yiguchin didn't want to meddle in other people's business. However, Shimen Fugue's words gave Yiguchin an idea. If he could really find a neo-demon lair, he might reap great rewards. However, Yiguchin wasn't naive. He said, how can I believe that you're telling the truth? Shimen Fugue looked harmless and didn't seem like a bad person. However, Yiguchin wasn't the kind of person to judge a person by their appearance. Shimen Fugue was so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat. He thought for a moment, then took out 7 or 8 tribulation weapons from his origin ring. Even Yiguchin was slightly surprised by the level of heroism he displayed. These tribulation weapons should be enough. Brother Yi, you should know that I'm extremely lucky. It's not impossible for me to find a neo-demon lair. You're lucky. Aren't you also trapped by neo-demons? Yiguchin smiled. Yes, but I ran into you. This proves that my luck is still good. Shimen Fugue defended himself against the attacks of the neo-demons as he explained. Hearing this explanation, Yiguchin felt like he couldn't refute it. Forget it. There's no need to use them as collateral. I'm sure you don't want to bear the consequences of deceiving me. Yiguchin smiled, but that smile carried a deeper meaning. If Shimen Fugue was deceiving him, Yiguchin would definitely make him pay the price. Of course. Shimen Fugue nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Yiguchin brandished his sword. The primal chaos divine flame spread out, accompanied by lightning and sword radiance. The power of the primal chaos divine flame was unimaginable. Furthermore, this flame was innately effective against demon gods, neo-demons, and other creatures of the dark world. Coupled with Yiguchin's own strength, the thousands of neo-demons were quickly buried in the sea of fire. Ha, Brother Yi is really strong. No wonder you could kill Gu Xiaoyang. Seeing that the crisis was over, Shimen Fugue flattered. Yiguchin didn't mind Shimen Fugue's flattery. Instead, he began to collect the soul-nourishing essences from the neo-demons. After he was done, Yiguchin looked at Shimen Fugue and said, "Can you take me to the neo-demon nest now?" "Of course. Why would I lie to you, Brother Yi?" Now in the West Island, the geniuses of the South Horizon region should unite. Shimon Fugue nodded repeatedly. Yiguchin glanced at Shimon Fugue. Shimon Fugue's fighting strength and temperament were at the bottom of the 10 great young masters. However, he possessed the noble star's fate. His destiny was very strong, and he had all kinds of divine weapons and treasures on him. Therefore, Shimon Fugue absolutely could not be underestimated. At the critical moment, his battle strength would be very strong. Then let's go. If what you said is true, I can take you away from the West Island, Yiguchin said. Thank you, thank you. I don't want to be trapped in the West Island alone. No matter how lucky I am, I will probably be surrounded and killed by the geniuses of the Dark World. Shimon Fugue hurriedly nodded in agreement. Then, Shimon Fugue led Yiguchin to the Neodemon nest. On the way, Shimon Fugue kept talking and asked Yiguchin about Itsangyue. Brother Yi, I heard that Fairy Itsangyue is close to you. She even helped you in the Holy Imperial World. Brother Yi, what is your relationship with Fairy Itsangyue? Fairy Itsangyue has never been friendly to any man. Shimon Fugue kept blabbering, which annoyed Yiguchin to no end. I have nothing to do with Itsangyue, Yiguchin said lightly. Is that so? That's good. Shimon Fugue breathed a sigh of relief. Itsangyue was the goddess in his heart, the object of his pursuit. Seeing this, Yiguchin secretly shook his head. He indeed had nothing to do with Itsangyue, but it was hard to say if Dugu was seeking a demon. But from another perspective, wasn't Dugu seeking a demon the same as Yiguchin? The original body and the doppelganger were the same person. Yiguchin naturally wouldn't tell this secret to Shimon Fugue. After about an hour, Shimon Fugue led Yiguchin to a mountain valley and stopped. In front of them was a pitch-black valley. There seemed to be a figure flashing in the valley. Someone beat us to it. Shimon Fugue's chubby cheeks changed slightly. Yiguchin looked over. He saw a group of people fighting with some neo-demons in front of the cave. There were about 100 people in the group. The leader was a man in a black robe and holding a blood sword. His aura had reached the 8th level of the Divine Dwelling Realm, which was stronger than Gue Wuchang and Yang Hong that Yiguchin had encountered before. Hey, is that man Qin Shang of the 7 Bully Lords? Yiguchin murmured. He had some information about the heaven prides of the Dark World. He naturally knew about the 7 Bully Lords. Qin Shang had a heavenly tribulation divine weapon, the bloodthirsty sword, and was extremely powerful. However, Qin Shang was not the only one. Yiguchin also saw 3 heaven prides, all of whom were part of the 13 tycoons. Other than that, the other heaven prides were just ordinary. Fortunately, there aren't any heaven prides at the level of the 4 tycoons. Otherwise, it would be troublesome, Yiguchin murmured. He didn't have to be afraid of the 7 Bully Lords at all. Only the 4 tycoons were comparable to the 4 emperors. Yiguchin wasn't afraid of them, but it would be difficult to finish the battle quickly. And in a place like the West Island, if he couldn't finish off his opponent quickly and was discovered by the heaven prides of the Dark World, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should we do next? Shimon Fugue asked. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Let's wait quietly. Yiguchin smiled. On the other side, Qin Shang was leading a group of heaven prides of the Dark World to fight against the neo-demons. Hurry up. There may be a soul-cultivating pool in this neo-demon lair. When you get the soul-cultivating pool, you may all advance to the Celestial Palace Supremacy, Qin Shang said. Hearing his words, the other heaven prides of the Dark World also had a trace of excitement in their eyes. In fact, their main reason for coming to the Burial Island was not to fight against the heaven prides of the South Horizon region. Instead, they were looking for an opportunity to break through to the Supremacy Realm. The soul-cultivating pool in this neo-demon lair was undoubtedly one of the best opportunities to help them break through to the Supremacy Realm. Blood Fiend 13 Swords. Qin Shang held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand and instantly slashed out 13 blood-red sword rays, tearing apart the neo-demons in front of him. As one of the 7 bully lords, his strength was beyond doubt. Beside him, the 3 heaven prides of the 13 tycoons also attacked with all their might to kill the Neodemons. After an hour of fighting, they had finally exterminated the majority of the Neodemons. Of course, Qin Shang and the others had also consumed a lot of energy. However, just as they were about to enter the Neodemon lair directly, a sharp screeching sound suddenly rang out. That's... Qin Shang's expression changed abruptly. Chapter 1386. Within the Neodemon lair, an incomparably huge Neodemon appeared. This Neodemon was at least 10 times larger than the average Neodemon. Furthermore, it was different from the pitch-black Neodemons. This Neodemon was covered with a hard, pitch-black exoskeleton. It looked almost like an insect as it floated in the air, looking both mysterious and ferocious. It was extremely frightening. It's a Neodemon king. Qin Shang's expression changed. Neodemons lived in groups. In every group of Neodemons, there was a Neodemon king who was extremely powerful and led the entire group. The strength of a Neodemon king was undoubtedly close to the level of a celestial palace supremacy. Everyone, attack together and kill this Neodemon king. Qin Shang shouted and attacked directly. The blood-red sword light tore through the sky and earth. However, when the sword light landed on the body of the Neodemon king, it was blocked by its black exoskeleton and only left a shallow mark. The 3 prodigies of the 13 gangsters, as well as the other prodigies of the dark world, also attacked together. In an instant, all kinds of moves were like rain, turning into a torrent that swept towards the Neodemon king. A great battle broke out. The prodigies of the dark world were not weak. As for the Neodemon king, its sharp barbed tentacles spread out, piercing through one of the prodigies of the dark world and sucking them dry. In the dark, Yiguchen and Shimen Fugue looked at the Neodemon king and were speechless. Fortunately, the prodigies of the dark world are at the front. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult for the 2 of us to enter the Neodemon lair, Shimen Fugue said with a sigh. Is this also because of your luck? Yiguchen asked. Of course. Shimen Fugue beamed with joy. He was obviously very confident in his heavenly noble fate. On the other side, the battle continued. After a full 2 hours, the prodigies of the dark world finally killed the Neodemon king. The prodigies of the dark world also suffered heavy casualties. About half of the 100 prodigies were dead. Although Qin Shang and the other 3 geniuses of the 13 gangsters did not die, they had consumed a lot of energy and were injured. That bastard is finally dead, said Qin Shang. Let's enter the Neodemon nest and get the soul cultivation pool. Hearing Qin Shang's words, the remaining dark world geniuses all looked excited. After countless trials and tribulations, he had slain numerous Neodemons, including Neodemon kings. They could finally enjoy the fruits of their victory. However, just as they were about to enter the nest, a calm voice suddenly sounded. I have to thank you for your help. However, let me handle the rest. Hearing this voice, the faces of Qin Shang and the others suddenly froze, and they turned their heads abruptly. 2 figures slowly walked out of the valley behind them. One of them was a handsome young man in a black robe, and the other was a chubby man. It was Yiguchen and Shimen Fugue. You are a heaven's pride of the South Horizon region? Qin Shang raised his eyebrows. He had thought that it was the heavenly talents from the dark world who wanted to take advantage of him. But he didn't expect it to be a genius from the South Horizon region. Qin Shang first glanced at Yiguchen and frowned slightly. There was no detailed information about Yiguchen in their information. However, when he turned his gaze to Shimen Fugue, he sneered. So it's young Master Fugue, one of the top 10 young masters of the South Horizon region, Shimen Fugue. Shimen Fugue's appearance was too distinctive. Almost everyone in the dark world recognized him. Since you know it's me, then you should know that you're finished today. Shimen Fugue raised his head slightly, looking fearless. Hearing Shimen Fugue's words, Qin Shang couldn't help but shake his head and laugh as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. Ha, ridiculous. I'm one of the 7 bully lords, while you are one of the top 10 young masters, but you're the weakest among them. You're just lucky. Qin Shang was extremely disdainful of Shimen Fugui. In his opinion, how could a person who relied on luck be qualified to stand shoulder to shoulder with him? Sometimes, luck is also a part of strength, Shimen Fugui said calmly. With Ye Guqin by his side, he felt incomparably at ease. I heard that you have a lot of treasures on you. You're simply a moving treasury. Since I happened to come across you, then I, Qin Shang, won't be disrespectful. Qin Shang stared at Shimen Fugui as if he was staring at a piece of fat meat on a chopping board. I'm right here. Come over if you have the guts. Shimen Fugui's face was asking for a beating as he arrogantly hooked his pinky at Qin Shang. You're courting death. Qin Shang's face was cold. He had expended some energy when dealing with the Neo-Demon King. However, he knew that it would be easy for him to deal with Shimen Fugui, who was the weakest among the top 10 young masters. Blood Fiend 13 Swords. Qin Shang held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand, and 13 sword rays shot out at the same time. However, Shimen Fugui didn't move. Are you scared, silly? Qin Shang sneered. This fool still doesn't know who is standing beside me. Shimen Fugui thought proudly. However, to his surprise, Ye Guqin didn't intend to make a move. Brother Yi? Shimen Fugui was stunned. I want 80% of the resources in the Neo-Demon Lair, Ye Guqin said calmly. This. Shimen Fugui was stunned. He didn't expect Ye Guqin to bargain at this juncture. They had heard that there might be a soul-cultivating pond in the Neo-Demon Lair. Originally, Shimen Fugui wanted to have a 50-50 split with Ye Guqin. But now, Ye Guqin was asking for 80%. If it were any other situation, Shimen Fugui would never agree. However, the sword rays were about to reach his head. Shimen Fugui was anxious. It wasn't that he didn't have a chance against Qin Shang, but it would take a long time. He might not be able to defeat Qin Shang, let alone kill him. In this way, Shimen Fugui couldn't get the opportunity in the Neo-Demon Lair by himself. With your luck, you will get many opportunities in the future. What's the harm in contributing a little now? Besides, I can take care of Qin Shang, Ye Guqin said calmly. He wasn't Shimen Fugui's bodyguard. He had to take advantage of the situation. It was not easy to get such an opportunity. Ye Guqin was not a pedantic person. Maybe he could get more opportunities by relying on Shimen Fugui in the future. Okay, Brother Yi, you win. I agree. Shimen Fugui said with a pained expression. It was as if he was cutting his own flesh. Just as Shimen Fugui's voice fell, Ye Guqin's wrist shook. The sword rays swept through the air and collided with Qin Shang's bloody sword rays. After a few clangs, Qin Shang's sword rays were blocked. You are, seeing that his attack was blocked, Qin Shang's eyes narrowed. The person who will kill you. Ye Guqin held the 9-dragon thunder prison and pointed his sword at Qin Shang. Chapter 1387. You want to kill me? Qin Shang was slightly stunned and didn't react for a moment. He even suspected that he had misheard. Who was he? One of the 7 overlords of the Dark World. He was second only to the War and Calamity twin stars and the 4 overlords. Even in the Dark World, he was a famous genius. Not to mention that he was backed by the Yellow Spring sect, one of the 7 major forces of the Dark World. It was a top force like the Rakshasa sect. Not many people in the younger generation of the Dark World dared to say that they could kill him. Now, a genius from the South Horizon region dared to say that he could kill him. Shimen Fugui is one of the top 10 young masters. Who are you? How dare you say that you want to kill me? How ridiculous. Qin Shang sneered. Except for a few well-informed geniuses from the Dark World who knew that a powerful sword young master had appeared in the South Horizon region, most of the geniuses from the Dark World didn't know Ye Guqin's strength. They didn't even know that there was a genius like Ye Guqin. Qin Shang was one of them. It's hard to say if I can kill the War and Calamity twin stars or the four overlords, but killing you, shouldn't be too difficult. Yi Guqin's tone was indifferent. You're courting death. Qin Shang didn't say anything else and directly attacked with his sword. He held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand and slashed out a terrifying sword light. Brother Shimen, I'll leave the rest of the geniuses to you, Yi Guqin said to Shimen Fugue. In addition to Qin Shang, there were 3 geniuses at the level of the 13 overlords and some cannon fodder. However, they had already expended a lot of energy when dealing with the Neo-Demon King, so it wasn't too difficult to deal with them. No matter how weak Shimen Fugue was, he was still one of the top 10 young masters. It was impossible that he couldn't even deal with these people. Don't worry, leave it to me. Shimen Fugue's origin ring flickered on his fat finger. All kinds of divine weapons and Dharma treasures appeared, dazzling everyone. Shimen Fugue didn't have many things, but he had so many divine weapons and Dharma treasures that he could kill people. He could still deal with the 13 overlords. On the other side, Yi Guqin's 9-dragon thunder prison collided with Qin Shang's move. The sound of metal clashing burst out, and the aura Qi Yang Yi Guqin's cultivation level was also revealed at this moment. 7th layer of the divine dwelling, who exactly are you? As soon as they exchanged blows, Yi Guqin's cultivation realm gave Qin Shang a shock. At this realm, he was at least at the level of the South Horizon region's Dragon Phoenix list. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Qin Shang not to know. When you die, I will tell you. Yi Guqin used the 3 arts of the Holy Sword. The sword lights of the Absolute Sun Sword and the Absolute Star Breaker Sword swept out and fused together, turning into a blazing torrent of sword chi. It was the Star Sun flowing fire. Feeling the terrifying fluctuation of this sword force, Qin Shang completely restrained his contempt. He was not a fool. How could he not see that although Yi Guqin did not have much information in the dark world, with such strength, he was definitely not a nobody. Blood Demon Sky Slashing Sword, Mad Demon Sky Splitting Sword. Qin Shang also activated the power of the divine dwelling in his body. Vast essential chi surged, and the bloodthirsty sword emitted a dazzling blood-red light. A blood-red sword light dozens of feet long tore through the air as if it could break open space. The collision of the 2 sword moves was like a collision of 2 great stars. Powerful fluctuations surged in all directions, causing the surrounding earth to crack. Yi Guqin was only pushed back 2 or 3 steps. But Qin Shang spat out a small mouthful of blood, and his figure was pushed back hundreds of feet. The other geniuses from the dark world were dumbfounded when they saw this. Qin Shang, one of the 7 bully lords, was at a disadvantage in one move. This was simply unbelievable to the dark world heaven prides. Hee, now you know how powerful Brother Yi is. Shimen Fugue smiled evilly, the fat on his face trembling slightly. Originally, he was a little nervous about wandering alone in the western island. In the end, his luck really helped him, and he met Yi Guqin. Shimen Fugue felt a sense of security beside Yi Guqin. He finally understood why so many women were willing to surround Yi Guqin. Even a man like him could feel this sense of security. Let me take care of you small fries. Shimen Fugue turned to deal with the 13 gangsters and other heaven prides. On the other side, Qin Shang's eyes were also filled with disbelief. He gritted his teeth and attacked again, injecting his essential chi into the bloodthirsty sword. Blood blade piercing the sky. The bloodthirsty sword swept across the sky, and the sharp sword light tore through the air, stabbing directly at Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin changed his moves again, performing the Qian Yang Sword of Extinction and the Kun Yu Sword of Extinction. The Qian Kun Extermination burst forth, and a vast sword light swept across the sky with a destructive aura. Boom! When the sword light collided, the surrounding earth and rocks cracked, and debris flew into the sky. Under such a powerful collision, Qin Shang's figure was pushed back again, and he coughed up blood. On the other hand, Yi Guqin was unscathed. How is this possible? Even if you are one of the 10 great young masters, you can't be so powerful. Qin Shang exclaimed, unable to believe it. Logically speaking, the 7 bully lords and the 10 great young masters should be at the same level. Of course, there were strong and weak among the 10 great young masters. For example, Chu Xuanzhen and Shimen Fugue's combat strength were not on the same level. Of course, there were strong and weak among the 7 bully lords. However, Qin Shang's combat strength was in the middle of the 7 bully lords, and he was not at the bottom. That was why he was shocked. I said that the outcome might not be certain when dealing with the War and Calamity twin stars or the 4 overlords, but it shouldn't be too difficult to deal with the 7 bully lords. Yi Guqin smiled faintly. It's not that simple. You will pay the price for underestimating the 7 bully lords. As Qin Shang spoke, his eyes suddenly turned blood red, and a blood-colored qi burst out from his body. The bloodthirsty sword also seemed to vibrate, emitting a bloodthirsty desire. What an evil sword. Yi Guqin frowned. It was obvious that Qin Shang was able to become one of the 7 overlords largely because his bloodthirsty sword was an evil weapon. However, Yi Guqin was not afraid at all. Because he had the 9-colored dark thunder and chaos divine fire, which could suppress all kinds of evil and cold forces. Devouring evil slash. Qin Shang exerted all his strength, and the sword burst out. In an instant, there seemed to be blood-colored vengeful spirits that burst out from the bloodthirsty sword. Those vengeful spirits were the martial artists who had died under the bloodthirsty sword. Even their souls were imprisoned and devoured by the bloodthirsty sword, and they became like evil spirits. This move not only contained the power of the sword itself, but also the power of countless vengeful spirits. It was obvious that this was Qin Shang's trump card. Die! Qin Shang's sword swept over, and the world seemed to be filled with a gloomy wind, which was very scary. He was extremely confident in this move of his. Ha! Yi Guqin's expression did not change. He directly activated the sword domain of the Peerless Thunder Sword Dao, Heaven's Punishment Thunder Prison. Together with the ultimate move of the godly sword lightning controlling art, Heaven's Punishment. In an instant, thunder and lightning shook the world, and vast astral lightning surged. Chapter 1388. The power of thunder was extremely effective against all kinds of demons and evil beings. It was also a great counter to the negative energies of all kinds of gloomy, cold, and bloody fiendish energies. Therefore, when Yi Guqin used the sword realm of the Peerless Thunder Sword Principle, the bloodthirsty sword suddenly let out a trembling sound, as if it had encountered its natural enemy, and could not help but tremble. The power of the devouring evil slash had also decreased by at least 30%. As for those vengeful spirits, they immediately let out a sharp cry as soon as they encountered the 9-colored profound thunder and turned into green smoke in the surging thunder. Boom! There was a violent explosion as the 2 ultimate moves collided and burst out a ring-shaped ripple of sword qi. The surrounding Shimen Fugue and the Dark World's geniuses were all affected and were shaken away. In the violent collision, a figure spat out a large mouthful of blood and flew out. It was Qin Shang. His whole body was charred by the thunder and lightning. His clothes were torn, his chin was full of blood, and his arms were also bleeding. The bloodthirsty sword in his hand seemed to have been severely damaged, and cracks spread out on the sword. Logically speaking, a heavenly tribulation divine weapon should not be so easily broken. However, the 9-colored profound thunder, the 9-dragon thunder prison, and the power of the thunder sword principle. The restraint of the bloodthirsty sword was too great. This kind of attribute restraint was sometimes very fatal. Defeated, Qin Shang was defeated. Seeing this scene, the Dark World's geniuses felt cold all over and their hearts sank. One of the 7 bully lords, Qin Shang, actually lost to an unknown South Horizon region prodigy. Shimen Fugue was not surprised. After all, Yi Guqin was someone who could even kill young Master Xingyun, Gu Xiaoyang. Defeating a little bully was not a big deal. Who the hell are you? You can't be a nobody in the South Horizon region. Qin Shang coughed out a mouthful of blood and stared at Yi Guqin. While he was angry, he was also shocked. How did such a powerful genius appear in the South Horizon region in this battle on Sky Burial Island? Qin Shang was also annoyed. Yi Guqin's power was just enough to restrain him. Otherwise, even if Qin Shang had lost, he would not have lost so miserably and thoroughly. TSK. You guys haven't even heard of Sword Young Master Yi Guqin's name? The world of darkness is truly ignorant. Before Yi Guqin could say anything, Shimen Fugue couldn't help but ask. If he wanted to leave West Island safely, he had to rely on Yi Guqin. He could at least flatter him. Sword Young Master. Yi Guqin. Qin Shang's eyes were filled with doubt at first. Then, as if he had suddenly thought of something, his eyes froze as he stared at Yi Guqin. Could it be that you're one of the newly promoted 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region, Yi Guqin? Waves surged in Qin Shang's heart. There was not much information about Yi Guqin in the dark world. Only a few well-informed people knew about him. He had also accidentally heard other heavenly legends from the dark world mention him. Otherwise, Qin Shang would not have realized it. It is said that Yi Guqin has amazing combat capability and has even killed the 10 great young masters of the same level. In this case, it is not impossible for him to kill me. Thinking of this, Qin Shang felt a chill in his heart, as if he had fallen into a cold lake in the dead of winter. Every pore on his body was emitting coldness. If you know it, then I'll let you die knowing it. Yi Guqin said indifferently and directly launched an attack. Killing a heavenly legend at the level of the 7 bullies could also earn him 1,000 points. Go to hell. Yi Guqin launched his most powerful moves. The Sword of Qianyang, the Sword of Moon, and the Star-breaking Sword of Sword merged in the void and turned into a mighty torrent of sword qi. The combination of the 3 moves, the moon falling star sinking vast yang break. The sword qi was like a torrent, pushing forward all the way. This was not only a fatal attack for Qin Shang, but also for the 3 heavenly legends of the 13 gangsters and the other heavenly legends from the dark world. Boom boom boom. Heaven and earth shook and the entire Neo-Demon lair seemed to be about to collapse. Shimen Fugue stared blankly at the scene in front of him. His chubby cheeks froze and he looked a little funny. After the attack, a huge gully appeared on the spot and spread for hundreds of feet. Inside the ravine, broken corpses and splashes of blood could be seen everywhere. Qin Shang, who was in the center of the attack, had already become a corpse. Even the bloodthirsty sword was cracked and had lost its spirituality. In addition, the 3 heavenly legends of the 13 gangsters were also lying on the ground, all seriously injured. If they had not been exhausted by the Neo-Demon King, perhaps they would not have been so miserable. But now, they were like a few dead dogs. As for the rest of the dark world, almost all of them were dead. Yi Guqin stepped forward and, without hesitation, ended the lives of the 3 heavenly legends with 3 strikes. Together with Qin Shang, his points in the crystal had increased again and reached 6,000 points. It should be noted that the Sky Burial Island had only been open for a few days. Ordinary heavenly legends of the South Horizon region might only have dozens or hundreds of points. Although I fell into the West Island of the heavenly legends of the Dark World, it's not a loss, Yi Guqin murmured. Although the danger had increased, so had the rewards. Not to mention other things, just these 6,000 points were enough to make him one of the top geniuses in the South Horizon region. If he had fallen into the East Island or the South Island, which was controlled by the South Horizon region, he would definitely not have such a reward. Shimen Fugue walked over and said with a bitter look on his chubby face, "Brother Yi, you're too fierce. You didn't even leave me any soup." Shimen Fugue thought that he could also get a few thousand points, but he did not expect that Yi Guqin would get all of them. "It's good enough that I can guarantee your safety. What else do you want?" Yi Guqin said indifferently. He was not a free nanny, and he would not be so kind as to take Shimen Fugue away from the West Island. If he wanted to be protected, he had to pay a price. Shimen Fugue was speechless. His thick and fat fingers twisted together, looking like a resentful little wife. Yi Guqin was also speechless. If it were not for the noble star, Shimon Fugue would not have been able to enter the ranks of the top 10 young masters. He was also considered a weirdo among the top 10 young masters. Okay, let's not talk about this. Let's explore the Neo-Demon lair. Yi Guqin waved his hand. Shimon Fugue heard this and perked up. Although he could only get 20% of the treasures in the Neo-Demon lair, it was not bad. After all, Shimon Fugue did not do much and only provided some information. The rest was done by Yi Guqin, so it was almost equivalent to a free meal. Shimon Fugue was not dissatisfied. Soon, they went deep into the Neo-Demon lair. A strange smell filled the air. There were dozens of Neo-Demons in the lair, but they were all killed by Yi Guqin's 9-colored thunder. Soon, they went deep into the Neo-Demon lair's deepest cave. At a glance, both of them were slightly shocked. Chapter 1389. As far as the eye could see, in the depths of the Neo-Demon lair, there was a pool of water. It was filled with the soul-cultivating source. The whole pool was filled with the soul-cultivating source. Ha, I'm rich. My luck is really good. Seeing the soul-cultivating pool, Shimon Fugue laughed and jumped 3 feet high. Shimon Fugue had been a little disappointed when he talked with Yi Guqin about the 20-80 split. He thought his harvest might not be so big. But now, seeing the soul-cultivating pool, Shimon Fugue's disappointment was swept away. A 20-80 split. Even if he could only get 20% of the profits, the profit he would gain would still be shocking. Yi Guqin was also slightly surprised. He did not expect that this Neo-Demon lair would bring him such a pleasant surprise. Ha, Qin Shang and the others must be angry in the netherworld. They helped us in vain. Shimon Fugue laughed. There's no time to lose. Let's collect the soul-cultivating source. Yi Guqin was calm and not overjoyed. They were still in the West Island and had just killed Qin Shang, one of the 7 bullies. Now, even if the heavenly legends of the Dark World in the West Island were slow, they should know that a powerful heavenly legend of the South Horizon region with unknown identity had appeared in the West Island. Therefore, Yi Guqin planned to go to the South Island directly after collecting the soul-cultivating source and join Jian Jinghong and the other Sword Sons. Then, Yi Guqin and Shimon Fugue began to collect the soul-cultivating source. 20% of the source of the soul cultivation was enough to satisfy Shimon Fugue, but Yi Guqin got 80%. It was not hard to imagine how great of an opportunity it was. Just when the two of them almost swept the entire soul-cultivating pool clean, Yi Guqin's eyes suddenly fell on the bottom of the pool. There was a pitch-black lump that looked like a beehive. What's this? Yi Guqin stretched out his hand, and his genuine qi burst out and sucked the beehive block into his hand. Shimon Fugue also looked over, as if he was thinking about what it was. Yi Guqin poured his true qi into it and tested it, but there was no movement. What the hell is this? Even Yi Guqin was puzzled. This was the only thing at the bottom of the soul-nourishing pond. Even Yi Guqin didn't believe that it was completely useless. This thing. Shimon Fugue's beady eyes revealed a suspicious look. What? Do you know what this is? Yi Guqin asked. If my guess is correct, this should be a Neo-Demon core, Shimon Fugue guessed. A Neo-Demon core? What is that? What is it used for? Yi Guqin continued to ask. The Neo-Demon core is what the Neo-Demon King uses to control the Neo-Demon horde. Brother Yi, try pouring your soul power into it, Shimon Fugue said. Yi Guqin nodded slightly. The primal chaos sea of consciousness in his mind spun as his primal chaos soul force poured into the Neo-Demon core. In an instant, strange soul shockwaves began to emanate from the Neo-Demon's core. These soul shockwaves had a special frequency. Yi Guqin could vaguely sense that he could see all the Neo-Demons within a radius of 10 kilometers. As for the Neo-Demons, after sensing the soul shockwaves, they began to converge towards the Neo-Demon nest. Yi Guqin immediately cut off the connection and stopped pouring his soul power into it. It really is a strange treasure. Yi Guqin's eyes shone with a strange light. Just now, He had poured his true qi into it, but it had no effect. Now that he poured his soul power into it, the results were immediately apparent. Although this Neo-Demon core wasn't a treasure that could help him cultivate or increase his cultivation base, in the special environment of Sky Burial Island, it was definitely a rare treasure. Thinking about it, with this Neo-Demon core, Yi-Guqin could even control the Neo-Demon horde. This ability was much more practical than any other treasure. Hee, Brother Yi, you can have your Neo-Demon core. Shimon Fugue knew what was good for him. He gave it to Yi-Guqin. He had already made up his mind to hug Yi-Guqin's thigh tightly. Oh, you're quite generous. Yi-Guqin raised his eyebrows slightly. Heh, Brother Yi, said Shimon Fugue confidently. With my luck and your power, the two of us working together would be a force to be reckoned with. All of Sky Burial Island is our treasure trove of opportunities. Why would we care about a Neo-Demon core? Hearing Shimon Fugue's words, Yi-Guqin was a little surprised. He didn't think that this seemingly silly fatty would be so astute. Alright, since that's the case, it would be impolite for me to refuse. Yi-Guqin didn't stand on ceremony with Shimon Fugue, and directly took the Neo-Demon core. After a round of looting, the two walked out of the Neo-Demon nest. Our harvest this time was pretty good. Yi-Guqin laughed. Not only did they kill the Dark World's geniuses and gain points, but they also obtained a huge amount of soul-cultivating source and Neo-Demon cores. It was definitely a bountiful harvest. Let's go. Yi-Guqin waved his hand and flew out with Shimon Fugue. On the other side, on a cliff in the West Island, a figure shrouded in a blood-red robe picked up a communication jade slip in front of him with a solemn expression. He was Shui Yunzi, one of the 7 overlords, the genius of the Rakshasa sect. Just now, he received news that 3 geniuses of the 13 gangsters had died. This was nothing to Shui Yunzi. However, the next news was what made Shui Yunzi's expression turn solemn. Qin Shang of the Acheron sect, one of the 7 overlords, had also died. Qin Shang is dead? Shui Yunzi was in disbelief. Qin Shang held the bloodthirsty sword in his hand. Even among the Dark World's geniuses, he was a formidable existence. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become one of the 7 overlords. But now, this infamous genius in the Dark World had died, which made Shui Yunzi extremely solemn. Because he was also one of the 7 overlords, he was not much more powerful than Qin Shang. Did the genius of the South Horizon region who killed Gue Wuchang do this? Shui Yunzi murmured. Since that person could kill Qin Shang, it meant that he also had the ability to kill Shui Yunzi. No, I originally wanted to go alone to kill that genius of the South Horizon region, but it seems that I can't. I need to contact the other geniuses of the West Island. Shui Yunzi looked cautious. He was not a fool. If even Qin Shang was dead, he would most likely die if he went alone. Let me think, who should I contact? The Calamity Star, one of the twin stars of war and calamity, is from the Acheron sect. Now that Qin Shang of the Acheron sect is dead, he probably won't sit back and watch. But the Calamity Star probably won't care about geniuses of this level. His target is Di Haotian of the South Horizon region and the geniuses of the 4 emperors. Who else is left? Shui Yunzi thought. Then, he suddenly thought of a person. That person was a newly risen genius of the Dark World. He was dressed in black and had a cold expression. His name was Mo Yi. Chapter 1390. Mo Yi was also a young prodigy who had risen to prominence in the Dark World recently. His experience was quite legendary, and he did not rely on any forces. Alone, he had made a name for himself in the Dark World and became one of the 7 overlords. This time, Mo Yi had also come to participate in the Battle of Burial Island. He did not fight for any forces and acted alone like a lone wolf. It's not easy to invite him, but this is the only way to kill that South Horizon region prodigy. Just him alone is not enough, I need to invite another one, Shui Yunzi murmured. He was very cautious and did not underestimate the South Horizon region prodigy whose identity was unknown. While Shui Yunzi was planning to kill Yi-Guqin, At a certain border of the western island, several disciples of the heavenly god sword sect were walking, looking around and talking at the same time. Hey, have you heard that many disciples of the overlords have died in the past few days? Yeah, and those who died were from the heavenly god sword sect, Starry Sword Pavilion, and Dongfang family. What's going on? Is there a prodigy from the dark world who is targeting us? I'm not sure about that, the disciples of the heavenly god sword sect were talking. However, a black-robed figure suddenly appeared not far in front of them. The black-robed figure was tall and slender. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and he wore a metal mask on his face. He held a black long sword in his hand, and the tip of the sword was slanted to the ground. A cold and murderous aura spread out. Who are you? The disciples of the heavenly god sword sect came to their senses and were on guard. Everyone from the heavenly god sword sect should die. A hoarse and cold voice came out of the man's mouth with extreme killing intent and hatred. You. Are you the prodigy from the dark world who hunted down our forces these days? One of the disciples of the heavenly god sword sect exclaimed with some fear in his eyes. Die. The man attacked directly. The black sword swept across the sky and drew a cold sword ray. Blood splattered and screams echoed in the field. In just a short period of time, those heavenly god sword sect disciples were all beheaded. After killing these heavenly god sword sect disciples, the black-clothed figure stood in place and muttered, "Not enough, I haven't killed enough people." At this moment, the figure seemed to have sensed something and took out a black crystal. The function of the black crystal was similar to that of Yi Guqin's crystal. After entering Burial Sky Island, it was used as a tool to assist in reading the map. The black crystal also had the ability to transmit messages. You want me to participate in the encirclement and annihilation of a South Horizon region genius? Ha! The black-robed figure sneered and left in a flash. He was none other than Mo Yi, one of the 7 bully lords that Shui Yunzi had mentioned. After about 7 or 8 days, Yi Guqin and Shimen Fugue finally arrived at the edge of the West Island. Because of Shimen Fugue's Providence physique, they had discovered many opportunities along the way. However, due to time constraints, Yi Guqin did not investigate them one by one. Anyway, as long as Shimen Fugue was there was no lack of opportunities. Taking a step back, even without Shimen Fugue, it would not be particularly difficult to find an opportunity on Sky Burial Island. The most important thing now was to leave the West Island and go to the South Island to meet Jian Jinghong and the others. Therefore, Yi Guqin did not waste any time. Phew, we are finally leaving the West Island. Shimen Fugue wiped the sweat on his fat face and exhaled softly. Now is not the time to relax. Do you think they will let us leave safely after we killed so many Dark World geniuses? Yi Guqin sneered. Brother Yi, you mean? Shimen Fugue suddenly quivered, as if a basin of cold water had been poured on his heart. If I were the heavenly son of the Dark World, I would definitely try to kill an unidentified heavenly son at the border and keep him here forever after he killed so many people in my territory. Yi Guqin's words made Shimen Fugue's heart sink. He could become one of the top 10 young masters because of luck and the noble star fate. But in fact, he was a coward. Perhaps many geniuses on the Dragon Phoenix list had a better mentality than Shimen Fugue. Brother Yi, you know that they may intercept and kill us at the border. Why did you walk into the trap? Shimen Fugue asked hurriedly. Yi Guqin had already expected this, but he still went. Wasn't he walking into the trap? Oh, why should I avoid them? Those are all points, Yi Guqin chuckled. It was not easy to come across a good opportunity to earn points. How could Yi Guqin give it up? Shimen Fugue was stunned when he heard that. He did not expect that Yi Guqin did not have the slightest intention of escaping. Instead, he regarded those Dark World geniuses as prey. It was as if the prey that had been targeted by the hunter began to think about how to kill the hunter. What a ruthless man, Shimen Fugue was speechless. He admired Yi Guqin very much. Now he understood why so many people called Yi Guqin a lunatic. Because Yi Guqin was not only ruthless to his enemies, but also to himself. Ordinary people would not want to walk into the trap, but Yiguchin did so. Not only did he want to survive the desperate situation, but he also wanted to kill the Dark World geniuses. It was the first time that Shimon Fugue had seen such a ruthless man. What? If you don't dare, we can part ways here. I'll attract the attention of those heavenly legends from the Dark World. It shouldn't be a big problem for you to leave the West Island safely, Yiguchin said calmly. Shimon Fugue's face showed a hint of struggle when he heard Yiguchin's words. If he left Yiguchin, he would be far away from danger, and there was a great chance that he could leave safely. But in this way, Shimon Fugue would definitely not have the possibility of cooperating with Yiguchin in the future. Shimon Fugue was not stupid. On the contrary, he was very shrewd. After secretly gritting his teeth, Shimon Fugue said, "Forget it. I will risk everything. With my luck and Brother Ye's strength, we will definitely be able to turn the situation around." Shimon Fugue had put all his bets on Yiguchin. Okay. Yiguchin nodded slightly. He did not say anything, nor did he make any promises. But the word okay represented everything. After making the decision, Yiguchin and Shimon Fugue also rushed toward the border of the West Island. After about 2 days, they finally got close to the border. The 4 regional islands of Burial Island were separated by huge cracks, which looked like a big rift valley. At this moment, Yiguchin looked into the distance. At the edge of the big rift valley, a group of densely packed figures stood there, each of them emitting a shocking aura. The 3 figures in the lead had the most powerful aura. 3 of the 7 bully lords are here. This is a bit troublesome, but no problem. Yiguchin's eyes shot out a cold light. Chapter 1391. A row of figures stood at the edge of the huge rift valley. Every one of them had a powerful aura. There were 3 people in the lead. One of them was a man in a blood-red robe, surrounded by a blood-red aura. The other was a man in a red robe. His whole body seemed to be covered in flames, and his red eyes were like red-hot steel balls. The last person was a young man in a black robe. His long black hair fluttered in the wind, and he wore an iron mask on his face and held a black long sword in his hand. Yiguchin was not afraid at all. He walked up to them calmly. Shimon Fugue was a little nervous. The 7 bully lords were comparable to the 10 young masters. 3 of them came at once. If it were anyone else, they would be flustered and unable to bear it. Yiguchin and he were both part of the 10 young masters. However, Shimon Fugue was not really one of the 10 young masters. He had to rely on all kinds of magic weapons to barely make it to the bottom of the 10 young masters. Shui Yunzi was surprised to see that Yiguchin and Shimon Fugue didn't hide, but took the initiative to walk forward. However, he still sneered and said, "You were the ones who killed the heavenly talents of the Dark World in the West Island, right? And Gue Wuchang of the Rakshasa sect was also killed by you." "That's right," Yiguchin said calmly. He glanced at Shui Yunzi and the others. When his eyes fell on Mo Yi, his pupils constricted slightly, but he soon returned to normal. The corners of his lips curled up into an imperceptible smile. However, Shui Yunzi and the others did not notice his smile. The man in a crimson robe at the side revealed a cold expression as he said, "I know you. You should be one of the 10 great young masters of the South Horizon region, the Sword Young Master, Yiguchin." Not all the heavenly talents of the Dark World were well informed. The man in the red robe had also heard of Yiguchin. "Oh, you must be Demon Lu, one of the 7 bully lords. You're good at the fire principle cultivation method," Yiguchin said with a smile. "With regards to us, the 7 little overlords, your South Horizon region seems to have done a thorough investigation." Lu Gmo sneered. He turned to Mo Yi and said, "Mo Yi, don't you have anything to say about these 2 prey?" The young man named Mo Yi turned his gaze to Yiguchin. Although he was wearing an iron mask on his face, the 2 round holes in his face revealed a faint hatred. That's right, it was hatred. Feeling this hatred, Yiguchin's chest heaved up and down as he deeply sighed. There was a complicated look in his eyes. I have nothing to say. Mo Ye's slightly hoarse and deep voice came out of his mouth. Ha! That's great. To be able to kill 2 of the top 10 young masters in one go, that's not too bad. Lu Gmo laughed as though victory was already within his grasp. Attack! Shui Yunzi made his move. He unleashed the true qi of the 7th level of the divine dwelling realm and gathered it in his palm. It turned into a blood-red palm print and pressed down on Yiguchen. Lu Gmo also made his move. He cultivated the great blazing sun demonic art. As he activated his cultivation method, he was like a sun, but also like a big furnace, bursting out a blazing aura. Raging true qi rolled around him, turning into fire snakes that rushed towards Yiguchen. On the contrary, Mo Yi didn't make his move immediately, as though he was observing the situation. On the other side, Yiguchen brought out the 9-dragon thunder prison sword and turned to Shimen Fugue. You just need to protect yourself. Leave the rest to me. Okay, Brother Yi, be careful. Shimen Fugue hurriedly nodded, and then brought out 3 or 4 protective divine weapons, such as shields, armors, shields, and the like. His whole person seemed to be covered with a turtle shell. With this kind of defense, even Shui Yunzi and the others couldn't cause any harm to Shimen Fugue for a while. Let me deal with this sword, young master. You deal with Shimen Fugue, said Lu Gmo. His eyes were full of fighting spirit as he looked at Yiguchen. After all, from what he heard, Yiguchen's battle strength was considered top-notch among the 10 young masters. Lu Gmo wanted to know if he could defeat the top existence among the 10 young masters. Okay, leave Shimen Fugue to me. Shui Yunzi's eyes flashed, and he attacked Shimen Fugue. As for Mo Yi, who hadn't made his move, they didn't urge him. After all, everything was under their control now. Yiguchen and Shimen Fugue were like caged beasts that couldn't escape. Yiguchen sneered as he looked at Lu Gmo, who was attacking him. If it were any other person, Yiguchen might have to brace himself. However, this Lu Ji just so happened to cultivate a fire path cultivation technique. Yiguchen had the chaos divine fire, so he was the least afraid of fire attacks. After all, when the divine fire appeared, all fire would submit. In the face of the fire snake, Yiguchen's sword vibrated, and sword chi gushed out, tearing the fire snake apart. After that, Yiguchen's sword power did not decrease and continued to pierce through Lu Ji's head. Seeing this, Lu Ji immediately took out a scarlet red furnace. It was his divine weapon, the Fire King Furnace. The tip of the 9-dragon lightning prison sword touched the Fire King Furnace, producing an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing. Both of them trembled. 9 bursting arrows. Lu Gmo slapped the Fire King Furnace. In an instant, the furnace's mouth opened, and 9 bursting arrows flew out. Each arrow could instantly kill a 5th-layer divine dwelling heaven pride. When the 9 arrows were shot out together, their powers superimposed, as if they could collapse a 10,000-foot mountain. Seeing this, Yiguchen directly displayed the 8 extremities transmigration sword art's extremity of water. The Kentrigram emerged in the void, and Yiguchen's sword tip pierced through it. In the blink of an eye, sword chi surged out like waves. Not only that, but inside Yiguchen's divine dwellings, the Xianyuan heavy water also surged out and blasted out with the sword. Boom! Water and fire clashed, bursting out like crazy waves. Some Xianyuan heavy water directly shot out, falling toward Lu Gmo. Lu Gmo felt a chill in his heart, sensing an extreme danger. He hurriedly used the Fire King Furnace to block. With a few loud clangs, the Fire King Furnace was sent flying back as if it had been smashed by a mountain. Even Lu Gmo was sent flying back, vomiting blood. What is that? Lu Gmo's heart trembled. Yiguchen took advantage of the situation. Sword light flashed, directly aiming for Lu Gmo's head. Earth Core Flame. Lu Gmo directly activated the rare heaven and earth flame in his body. Violent scarlet flames burst out from the Fire King Furnace, bringing with it an explosive aura that could burn the world. Yi Guqin, die. Lu Gmo sneered. His flame was a supreme-grade rare heaven and earth flame, and it was his trump card. Seeing this, Yi Guqin chuckled. For others, the earth core flame might indeed be a trump card. But for him, it was just a joke. Yi Guqin raised his hand, and the five-colored primal chaos divine flame gushed out. The geocentric blazing fire was suppressed to the extreme in an instant. How is this possible? Lu Gmo exclaimed, his pupils trembling. Chapter 1392. Around Yi Guqin, the five-colored chaos divine flame was surging. The temperature between heaven and earth rose rapidly, and the void was slightly distorted by the flames. When Yi Guqin took out the chaotic divine flame, Lu Jima seemed to be in a daze. His eyes were filled with shock. He cultivated the Great Blazing Sun magic technique, which was a fire technique. He was extremely sensitive to flames. From the moment Yi Guqin took out the chaos divine flame, Lu Ji felt that the flame was extremely terrifying. It was even more terrifying than his supreme great earth flame, the earth core flame. No, impossible. What kind of flame is that? Could it be a divine flame? Lu Ji's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. He thought of a possibility and couldn't help but blurt out. That was a divine flame. Although a supreme great earth flame was rare, it could be found if one really wanted to find it. However, it would take a lot of time and effort. But a divine flame was different. A flame of this level was too rare. It was rumored that those divine blacksmiths who forged the immemorial famous swords also used a divine flame. This showed how powerful and rare a divine flame was. But before his eyes, such a rare existence was taken out by a genius from the South Horizon region. Lu Ji couldn't believe his eyes. Don't you think it's naive to show off your flame in front of me? Yi Guqin said indifferently. When the divine flame appeared, all flames would submit. With the protection of the chaos divine flame, any fire attribute attack from Lu Ji would be weakened by at least half. Unless his opponent had a divine flame like him. However, it was obviously impossible for Lu Ji to have a divine flame. Having a supreme great earth flame was already the limit. No, I don't believe it. Lu Ji's face turned serious as he activated his divine dwelling true qi. Within the Fire King cauldron, raging flames rose into the sky and turned into a huge flaming lotus. The entire flaming lotus contained an explosive and terrifying aura. Great Flaming Lotus. Lu Ji took out his ultimate move. With the support of the earth core flame, he charged towards Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin's sword aura changed, and the runes of the Li trigram appeared in the void. The tip of his sword pierced through the air, and the explosive flames accompanied by the sword radiance swept across the sky. At the same time, he also used the power of the Chaos Divine Flame. The multicolored primal Chaos Divine Flame wrapped around the sword light and collided with the Fire Lotus. In the blink of an eye, an explosive ring-shaped flame wave spread out in all directions. The Dark World prodigies hurriedly dodged, afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. Under such a powerful collision, Lu Gmo was sent flying while spewing out blood. His clothes were charred, and his skin was blackened. He was in a sorry state. One of the 7 overlords, Lu Gmo, had suffered a crushing defeat. Is Yi Guqin really that strong? Shui Yunzi, who was fighting with Shimen Fugue, was shocked. Brother Yi is awesome. Shimen Fugue shouted at the top of his lungs, his small eyes filled with excitement. With Yi Guqin around, they might really be able to leave safely today. Damn it! Get him! Lu Gmo's expression was extremely ugly. He had originally wanted to kill Yi Guqin in a one-on-one battle. However, Yi Guqin's strength had far exceeded his expectations. He also did not expect Yi Guqin to have the primal chaos divine flame. This was simply a natural counter to him. Therefore, no matter how unwilling Lu Gmo was, he could only give up on the one-on-one battle and attack from all sides. Hearing this, the geniuses of the Dark World swarmed over like bees. Seeing this, Yi Guqin immediately used the unique skill of the sword faction. 108,000 sword souls of the heaven-ripping sword surged out of Yiguchen's body like a green torrent, sweeping across the sky and the ground. Go! Yiguchen pointed his sword, and 100,000 sword souls rushed toward the Dark World prodigies. The 108,000 sword souls were the most suitable method to attack a group of people. Seeing the torrent of sword souls, the Dark World prodigies' expressions changed drastically. They used all kinds of methods to defend themselves. However, after a round of attacks, less than 10% of the Dark World prodigies survived. How could this be? Lu Gmo and Shui Yunzi's hearts trembled slightly. Yiguchen's strength and various methods were far beyond their expectations. Was he also a top 10 young masters? They believed that he was one of the 4 princes. Damn it, our information about Yiguchen is definitely wrong. His strength is no longer that of the top 10 young masters. He is at least as dangerous as one of the 4 princes, Shui Yunzi thought to himself. The 7 bully lords and the top 10 young masters were all dangerous. The 4 princes and the 4 little magnates were extremely dangerous. On the other hand, Di Haotian and the War Calamity twin stars were taboo grade. Among the Dark World prodigies, the few who knew about Yiguchen only regarded him as a dangerous figure. However, Yiguchen's strength had definitely reached the extremely dangerous level. It was no longer something that the 7 bully lords could handle. Perhaps only the first and second of the 7 bully lords could contend with him. Mo Yi, don't just stand there. Hurry up and do something. Lu Gmo roared. Shui Yunzi and Shiman Fugue were entangled in a fight and could not lend a helping hand. The Dark World prodigies were almost completely slaughtered by the 100,000 sword souls. Therefore, the only one who could help Lu Gmo now was Mo Yi. Mo Yi flipped the black longsword in his hand and finally moved. He stepped into the air and swung his sword horizontally. Humph, great. With Mo Yi here, the 2 of us can't contend with you. Lu Gmo sneered. Yiguchen's expression was still calm, as if he was not shaken by the change in the situation in front of him. However, at this moment, Lu Gmo suddenly felt a sharp sword chi locking onto him. He instinctively moved his body to the side, but the sword chi still pierced his chest from behind. Then, the sword chi suddenly shook, and half of Lu Gmo's chest and one of his arms were directly thrown off. Blood splattered everywhere. Ah! Lu Gmo let out an inhuman roar, his eyes bulging. Extreme pain was accompanied by disbelief and shock. He turned around and looked at Mo Yi, who had attacked with his sword. He simply couldn't believe it. This scene left Shui Yunzi dumbfounded. He had not expected this at all. Mo Yi, are you crazy? Shui Yunzi roared. At this time, Yiguchen could not remain indifferent. He used the divine movement secret technique and turned into a flash of lightning, directly in front of Lu Gmo. The sword chi vibrated and went straight for Lu Gmo's head. Lu Gmo was already injured, and with Mo Yi's sneak attack, he was seriously injured and could not resist at all. In just a short moment, he let out an indignant roar. Lu Gmo, one of the 7 bully lords, had also fallen in the hands of Yiguchen. Now, you're the only one left. Yiguchen looked at Shui Yunzi. Mo Yi also raised his sword chi and pointed it at Shui Yunzi. As for Shiman Fugue, he was at a loss and did not know what to do. Why did the 7 bully lords of the Dark World turn against him at the last minute? Mo Yi, you. Shui Yunzi trembled all over, his face ferocious. He could not even defeat Yiguchen in a one-on-one fight, let alone Mo Yi, who was quite strong. In less than 15 minutes. Shui Yunzi also fell under the siege of Mo Yi and Yiguchen. In the end, he was killed by Yiguchen's sword chi. Now, except for Mo Yi, all the other Dark World heavenly talents present had fallen. Mo Yi looked at Yiguchen. Yiguchen also looked at Mo Yi. The 2 looked at each other, speechless. Then, Mo Yi's eyes suddenly burst with hatred. The sword chi in his hand suddenly shook and stabbed at Yiguchen's chest. Chapter 1393. The sharp edge of the sword went straight for Yiguchen's chest, tearing through the air. Yiguchen's gaze was complicated as he watched Mo Ye's sword. He didn't dodge, but stood in place like a statue. What's going on? Shimon Fugue was completely dumbfounded. Shimon Fugue was already confused by Mo Ye's sudden betrayal and attack on Devil Lu and the others. He guessed that Mo Ye might have some unknown relationship with Yiguchen. But now, after Lu Jima and Shui Yunzi died, Mo Ye directly attacked Yiguchen. This left Shimon Fugue completely dumbfounded. But right now, he couldn't care that much. He shouted loudly, "Brother Yi, quickly dodge." Given Yiguchen's strength, it wasn't impossible for him to kill Mo Ye, let alone dodge the sword. However, Yiguchen didn't seem to hear him. He stared straight at Mo Ye. There was a faint hatred in Mo Ye's eyes under the iron mask. Time seemed to slow down at this moment. Mo Ye's sword fell on Yiguchen's chest. The sword was only an inch away from Yiguchen's chest. The sharp sword aura passed through the sword and left a bloody mark on Yiguchen's chest. At this moment, the ink-colored long sword stopped. Yiguchen's eyes were very calm, without a trace of fear in the face of death. He knew that Mo Ye wouldn't kill him. Even if Mo Ye wanted to kill him, Yiguchen would have no regrets. This was what he should pay. Phew. You scared me to death. Seeing this, Shimon Fugue wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. He still didn't know what the relationship between Yiguchen and Mo Ye was. But it was clear that there was no real hatred between the two of them. Sensing the oppressive atmosphere, Shimon Fugue tactfully retreated far away. Only Mo Ye and Yiguchen were left on the scene. The sword in Mo Ye's hand was still pressed against Yiguchen's chest. For a moment, the two of them were silent. After a long while, Yiguchen said, "Long time no see." "Ha!" Mo Ye snorted and said, "If we're going to meet in this way, then I'd rather never meet you. I didn't expect you to become one of the 7 bully lords. Looks like you've experienced a lot in this period of time." Yiguchen's tone carried a hint of emotion. "That's right. I've grown a lot because I still have goals that I haven't achieved yet. What about you? Do you still have the face to face me?" As Mo Ye spoke, he raised his other hand and placed it on the iron mask on his face. Then, he slowly took it off. A cold face appeared in front of Yiguchen. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and his gaze was profound. Compared to before, his temperament was a little more profound and ferocious. This person was none other than Su Moyan. He was also Su Jianche's brother. After Di Haotian's servant came to Lotus Village to slaughter the villagers, Yiguchen wanted Su Jianche and Su Moyan to go with him to the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest, but Su Moyan refused. He said that he wanted to go to a place where he could become stronger. Now, it seemed that the place that could make Su Moyan stronger was the Dark World. The fighting and killing in the Dark World was far more intense than in the South Horizon region. Only in such a cruel place could Su Moyan grow so quickly. Even a cultivation genius like Yiguchen sighed with emotion. Su Moyan's strength was indeed much stronger than before. Not just anyone could become one of the 7 bully lords. At this moment, there was a faint trace of hatred in Su Moyan's eyes. He threw down his sword and punched Yiguchen's face. Yiguchen didn't dodge and allowed Su Moyan to punch him. "Yiguchen, before I left, I entrusted my sister to you. What happened to you? How did you take care of her?" Su Moyan's eyes were slightly bloodshot as he clenched his fists tightly. "It's my fault. I didn't take good care of her. You deserve this punch." Yiguchen sighed. He didn't explain or defend himself. He just silently endured it. Su Moyan was Su Jianche's brother, and Su Jianche was now sealed in the Emperor's sword. No matter what the situation was, Yiguchen wouldn't shirk his responsibility. "Ha, do you think you can just say that you didn't take good care of her? Do you know how much she sacrificed for you?" Su Moyan clenched his fist again and punched Yiguchen. Yiguchen didn't dodge. But this time, the fist stopped in front of Yi Guchen and did not land. After a long time, Su Moyan released his fist. "Don't you have any explanation?" Su Moyan said in a low voice. "What's there to explain?" "There's no need to explain. I won't shirk my responsibility," Yi Guchen said firmly. Su Moyan shook his head slightly. "I actually understood the situation. At that time, let alone my sister, you couldn't even protect your own life. My sister was willing to sacrifice herself for you, and you also heavily injured Di Haoyan for her." Su Moyan let out a deep breath. When he saw Yi Guchen, he was indeed angry. After all, he was the one who personally entrusted Su Jianshi to Yi Guchen. But in the end, this was the result. However, Su Moyan wasn't an unreasonable person. He also understood the situation at that time. It wasn't that Yi Guchen didn't want to protect Su Jianshi, but that he was forced into a corner and almost died. So, how could Su Moyan blame Yi Guchen? "I definitely won't let that Di Haoyan go. I must save my sister." Su Moyan's tone was as cold as frost. Yi Guchen said firmly, "I've already made a blood oath to kill Di Haoyan. On Sky Burial Island, I'll settle things with him. When the time comes, I'll definitely save Su Jianshi." Yi Guchen's words eased Su Moyan's expression. At least Su Jianshi hadn't died. They could still save her. Although saving Su Jianshi from Di Haoyan's hands was harder than ascending to the heavens, Yi Guchen and Su Moyan wouldn't give up. "What are you going to do next?" Yi Guchen asked. "I'll continue to be one of the 7 bully lords. I'll also inquire about Di Haoyan's whereabouts," said Su Moyan. "That's good. You gather information in the dark world. I'll stay in the South Horizon region." Yi Guchen nodded slightly. Now that Su Moyan was in the dark world, he would be even more useful. Then, Su Moyan and Yi Guchen exchanged communication jade slips so that it would be easier to contact each other. "Sky Burial Island is the last chance to save my sister. If we miss this chance, it'll be even harder to save her in the Heavenly God Sword sect," Su Moyan said in a low voice. "I know that." Yi Guchen nodded slightly. "Right, there's one more thing I need to tell you." Su Moyan's eyes flashed. "What is it?" Yi Guchen asked. "There are people from the Su family among the geniuses of the dark world," said Su Moyan. Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows slightly. There were people from the Su family among the geniuses of the dark world? That meant that the remaining forces of the Su family had hidden in the dark world. He thought of Enai Shang, who he had met outside the sacred emperor realm in the sacred city of fortune. Su Qiqing, whom he had saved at the trade fair, had also left with Enai Shang. Was Enai Shang also from the Su family? Chapter 1394. When he first met Enai Shang in the sacred city of fortune, Yi Guchen felt that this woman was extremely mysterious and probably had an extraordinary background. Now that he thought about it, there must have been a reason why she protected Su Qiqing back then. And the biggest reason was that Enai Shang was also a member of the Su family. "It seems that your Su family's inheritance hasn't been completely severed," Yi Guchen said. Su Moyan's tone was cold. "Although there are still a few clansmen in the dark world, it's far from 10 to 20% of the Su family's peak. If we didn't hide in the dark world, perhaps the last batch of clansmen would have been killed by the Heavenly God Sword sect and other forces." "What kind of existence is the dark world?" Yi Guchen asked the question that had been on his mind for a long time. As a prodigy of the South Horizon region, when he heard about the dark world, most people said that it was a place full of conquest and chaos. That place was the place that opposed the South Horizon region. But now, the dark world seemed more like a shelter. Those people and forces who couldn't survive in the South Horizon region all entered the dark world. The dark world is far from as simple as you think, and it's definitely not a symbol of evil. Although there are indeed many demon sect cultivators, the dark world wasn't like this in the beginning, Su Moyan said. After all, he had been in the dark world for so long, and his views were obviously different from before. "So that's how it is," Yi Guchen muttered to himself. If the Dark World wasn't a completely evil existence, then what was the reason for the South Horizon region to fight with it? Yiguchin vaguely felt that there was a great secret behind it. If you really want to know, I suggest you go to the Dark World in the future to experience it for yourself, Su Moyan said. We'll talk about this later. Yiguchin shook his head slightly. Alright, I'll take my leave first, Su Moyan said. Take care. As for Su Jianshi, Yiguchin wanted to say something, but Su Mo Yen waved his hand and interrupted him. You don't have to say anything. I just hope that my little sister can stand in front of me in one piece, Su Moyan said. Definitely, Yiguchin said. Su Moyan took a deep look at Yiguchin, then left. After Su Moyan left, Shimen Fugue also walked over. You should know what you can say and what you can't say, right? Yiguchin said calmly. Of course, I only saw you kill Shui Yunzi and Lu Gmo. I didn't see anything else. Shimen Fugue quickly nodded. The South Horizon region and the Dark World had always been like fire and water. If news of Yiguchin's relationship with the heavens chosen of the Dark World got out, it would bring a lot of trouble to Yiguchin. Let's go straight to the South Island, Yiguchin said. This time, he had gained a lot. He had gained a total of 8,000 points. In the entire South Horizon region, he was definitely one of the top existences. Then, Yiguchin led Shimen Fugue across the border to the South Island. On the other side. Sky Burial Island, West Island. A white-haired figure with a devilishly handsome face was standing in front of a pile of corpses. Opposite him, the last remaining heavenly talent from the Dark World was covered in blood. His face was filled with unprecedented fear and arrogance. Are you really a genius of the South Horizon region? Why are you even more ruthless than the geniuses of our Dark World? This elite of the 13 gangsters was scared out of his wits by this white-haired figure in front of him. The geniuses of the Dark World were famous for their ruthlessness. Their combat experience was much richer than the geniuses of the South Horizon region. However, in the face of this white-haired Azura, even as one of the 13 gangsters, he was scared out of his wits. Die. This figure was naturally Doguchilmo. His tone was cold as he activated the soul-devouring demon eye. In an instant, the Dark World's prodigies had exploded. Red and white matter splattered everywhere. Doguchio Mo took out the crystal. There were already more than 6,000 points on it. Although it was slightly weaker than Yiguchin's, it was still considered one of the top. I didn't expect to be teleported to a place like the West Island, but it's good too, Doguchio murmured. When he was teleported, he was separated from Princess Luo Ho and was stranded in the West Island alone. The West Island was also a territory controlled by the Dark World. If it were other heavenly talents from the South Horizon region, they might be extremely terrified. However, it couldn't be better for Doguchio. Not only could he grow quickly through killing, but he could also get rich points as a reward. Let's find the next prey, Doguchio muttered to himself and left using a secret technique. About half a day after Doguchio left, two figures landed on the ground. One of them was a woman in blood-colored armor. She had a charming face and snow-white skin. She had a head of long red hair that burned like a raging flame. Her temperament was somewhat similar to Princess Luo Ho's. She carried a blood-colored long axe on her back that didn't match her body size. It was stained with blood. Beside her stood a handsome young man with a folding fan in his hand. When the two of them saw the tragic scene in front of them, their faces froze. Such ruthlessness. She's not inferior to our Dark World's heavenly talents, the young man with the folding fan said with a frown. However, when the woman in blood-colored armor glanced around, her face changed slightly. This is Azura Vital Chi. The woman's tone was full of shock. What? Azura Vital Chi? Is this the Azura Palace's Azura Vital Chi? The man with the folding fan was also surprised. The Azura Palace was a top force in the Dark World. It was on par with the Rakshasa sect and the Yellow Spring sect. The Azura Palace's most prominent characteristic was their Azura vital chi. This special vital chi could only be possessed by the Azura Palace's martial artists. The woman with long red hair and blood-colored armor was the Azura Palace's heavenly talent, Noa Luo. At the same time, she was also one of the 7 bully lords. She was ranked 3rd among the 7 bully lords. She was stronger than Qin Shang, Shui Yunzi, Lu Jima, and the others. As for the young man with the folding fan, he came from another top force in the Dark World, the Nightless City. His name was Song Gu. He was ranked 4th among the 7 bully lords. That's right. This is Azura Vital Chi. But who is it? Noa Luo asked doubtfully. Song Gu hesitated for a moment, then said, could it be the one from the Azura Palace? He was referring to the Azura Palace's strongest heavenly talent. He was also one of the twin stars of war and calamity, Zhan Xing. Absolutely impossible. That person has no reason to attack these people. Moreover, they would never provoke that person. When Noa Luo mentioned Zhan Xing, her beautiful face was filled with fanaticism and worship. As the Azura Palace's strongest heavenly talent and one of the twin stars of war and calamity, Zhan Xing. His strength was already at the peak of the younger generation in the Dark World. How could such a person attack these small fries? Chapter 1395. Then who could it be? Other than the Azura Palace, which other force in the Dark World can condense Azura vital energy? Song Gu asked. I don't know, but logically speaking, the killer should be a prodigy from the South Horizon region, Noah guessed. A prodigy from the South Horizon region? How is that possible? Azura Vital Energy is the Azura Palace's unique skill. Even other people in the Dark World can't learn it, let alone a prodigy from the South Horizon region. Song Gu couldn't believe it. Then I don't know. Anyway, the killer shouldn't be from the Azura Palace. Other than the Azura Vital Energy, the wounds left by other martial arts don't seem to be from the Azura Palace. Noa carefully examined the wounds on the corpses, then shook her head slightly. I see. That's strange, Song Gu said. No matter what, I'll tell that lord about this. I'll also track down the killer and find out how he could condense Azura Vital Energy, Noa said. Then, Noa passed on some information to Warstar. After that, she and Song Gu followed some traces and began to track down Duguchuma. Burial Sky Island, South Island. This island was under the control of the South Horizon region prodigies. On the South Island, there were some strongholds. These strongholds were remodeled from some ancient ruins on Burial Sky Island and became the strongholds for the prodigies of the South Horizon region to attack and defend. There were also strongholds on the other 3 islands. At this moment, outside a stronghold near the border of the South Island, the densely packed neo-demons surged forward like a tidal wave. Outside the stronghold, hundreds of prodigies of the South Horizon region were fighting with all their might. Inside the stronghold, a figure was standing on the city wall, strategizing. It was a young man in a black and gold robe, with the emblem of the Dongfang family embroidered on his chest. He was a prodigy of the Dongfang family named Dongfang Cangming. He was also a prodigy on the Dragon Phoenix list. Although his status was not as high as young Master Tong Tian of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Guangyao, his strength was not bad. At this moment, Jian Jinghong and the other prodigies of the Sword Dynasty were charging at the front line on the battlefield. They were all injured, but they still fought bravely without fear of death. One of the geniuses beside Dongfang Cangming couldn't help but say, Brother Dongfang, isn't this a bit too much? You've been letting the geniuses of the Sword Dynasty fight at the front. If they're unhappy. Ah, so what? Who asked them to be jackals of the same tribe as Yiguchen? That Yiguchen had killed my Dongfang family's men. It's time for the people around him to pay the price. But doesn't this count as taking revenge for a personal grudge? Another Heaven's Chosen asked. So what if they know? So what if they are dissatisfied? This is an order from those young masters. Can they go against it? Dongfang Cangming sneered. Hearing him mention the young masters, the rest of the heaven's favorites shuddered. The people who asked them to guard the border were none other than young Master Tong Tian, young Master Shenbing, and young Master Xuanzhen. They were Dongfang Guangyao, Nangong Ju Yun, and Chu Xuanzhen. They were not in the stronghold at the moment, but they had jointly issued an order for all the heaven's favorites here to guard the stronghold and not let the dark world's favorites break through. Otherwise, the entire South Island would fall into chaos. Those dark world's favorites are really cunning. They actually lured the neo-demons from several nests to attack the stronghold. When the time comes, they will use up all our strength before launching the final attack. Some of the heaven's favorites cursed. Dongfang Sangming shook his head and sneered. Who cares? Let's play it by ear when the time comes. Although Dongfang Sangming said that, in his heart, he wished that all the sword sons of the Sword Dynasty would die on the battlefield. At the same time, in the midst of the intense neo-demon battle, some of the sword sons were in a bad situation. Han Lingxuan's face was pale. She was surrounded by a group of neo-demons and spat out blood. Be careful. Jian Jinghong sent out a sword ray to relieve Han Lingxian of her predicament. On the other side, Ling Moyin was also in danger. Ling Emoshu stepped forward to help. However, every single sword's son was already injured. Even Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and the others, who were slightly stronger, were panting and exhausted. After all, the neo-demon horde was too large. It was formed from the fusion of several nests. There were thousands of them. How could the few hundred South Sky region prodigies withstand such a large number of neo-demons? Damn it! Dongfang Sangming and the others from the Dongfang family are just standing there and watching. Mu Xingzu's eyes burned with anger. They were fighting desperately with the neo-demons here to protect the stronghold at the border. Dongfang Sangming and the others were leisurely standing on the city wall and giving orders. Anyone would be unhappy if they were in this situation. Sigh, it's all because of those three young masters. Jian Jinghong said in a low voice. The three young masters represented the three great forces behind them. To put it bluntly, if the three of them spoke at the same time, they could command all the South Sky region prodigies. Even the sword sons of the Sword Dynasty could not resist. Otherwise, they would become the target of public criticism again. Forget it. Let's retreat for now. Jian Jinghong gritted his teeth. If they persisted, there would be casualties among the sword sons. Yi Guqin was not here, so Jian Jinghong was the leader of the sword sons. Under his leadership, the sword masters gradually retreated. If they retreated, the rest of the prodigies would find it even harder to resist the neo-demons. The entire battle was in a predicament. What are you doing? Are you trying to run away? At this moment, Dongfang Sangming suddenly shouted from the top of the city wall. He led a group of Dongfang family members to block the city gate. We, the sword sons of the Sword Dynasty, have been fighting at the front lines. But now, we are all injured and exhausted. If this continues, we will definitely lose our lives. Jian Jinghong retorted. What lives? I think you all just don't want to contribute. The sword son of the Sword Dynasty, the leader of the 100 great dynasties in the South Sky region, is actually running away. If this matter spreads, does the Sword Dynasty still have any face left? Dongfang Sangming said coldly. You are the shameless ones. You only know how to stand on the city wall and watch. If you, the overlord forces, had helped, the battle would not have been in a stalemate for so long. Mu Xingzu could not help but stand out and shout. Ha! You are Yi Guqin's disciple, right? You have the same personality as your chief master. However, the order to defend this place was jointly issued by the three young masters. Do you dare to resist? If you resist, the sword sons of the Sword Dynasty will be completely ostracized. Do you dare? Dongfang Sangming raised his head slightly and said with contempt. Chapter 1396. The three young masters would not waste their precious time on defending the stronghold. Therefore, Dongfang Guangyao gave Dongfang Cangming full control of the stronghold. Therefore, Dongfang Cangming became the leader of the stronghold and everyone had to listen to his orders. Even if Jian Jinghong and the rest were unwilling to listen to his orders, they could only bear with it because of the three young masters' power. But now, Jian Jinghong and the rest could not hold on any longer. Mu Xingzu was furious when she heard Dongfang Cangming's words. She shouted, "So be it. Are you not taking the lives of the sword sons of the sword dynasty seriously?" Jian Jinghong and the rest were also indifferent. They were not fools. It was not a big deal for them to help as long as it did not threaten their own safety. But now, Han Lingxian, Ling Moyin, and the rest were almost at their limits and were injured. They were also exhausted. If they still persisted at this time, they would really be courting death. Get out of the way. Jian Jinghong's eyes were cold. However, Dongfang Cangming did not move at all. The sky prides of the Dongfang family around him stood in a row and blocked the city gate. What is the meaning of this? Jian Jinghong's eyes darkened. Dongfang Cangming stood calmly with his hands behind his back and said, "As the leader of the 100 great dynasties, the sword dynasty should set an example and not be a deserter. So, please continue to fight." As soon as these words came out, Jian Jinghong, Ling Mashu, and the others all had a cold look in their eyes. A cold battle intent rose in their hearts. Why? Do you want to fight? If you want to fight, you have to consider the three young masters. If you go against their orders, you will not have a good ending. Dongfang Cangming sneered. Jian Jinghong and the rest looked terrible when they heard that. They were injured and exhausted. They would be at a disadvantage if they wanted to fight against Dongfang Cangming and the rest. Aren't you afraid that my master will come back and settle the score with you? Mu Xingzu reprimanded coldly. Dongfang Cangming's eyes flashed with fear when he heard Mu Xingzu's words. After all, Ye Guqin's influence was too great now. His performance in the Holy Imperial Universe was outstanding. Even young Master Xingyun, Gu Xiaoyang, was killed by him. Presently, Ye Guqin was similarly one of the 10 great young masters, the sword young master, so there was no need for him to listen to the orders of the 3 great young masters. However, it was clear that Dongfang Cangming would not back down. He sneered and said, "Don't threaten me with Ye Guqin. He hasn't appeared in South Island yet, and there's no news of him in East Island, either. He might have landed on an island controlled by the heavenly son of the dark world. Maybe he has already died. Do you still want to take advantage of him?" Dongfang Cangming was very stubborn. He did not believe that Ye Guqin would appear here so coincidentally. Furthermore, even if Ye Guqin really did appear in the end, it would still be impossible. He had the support of the 3 young masters. How could he be afraid of Ye Guqin? How could my master die? Mu Xingzu said with a cold expression. In her mind, even if all the heavenly sons of the South Sky region on Sky Burial Island were dead, Ye Guqin would still be alive. Cut the crap. Everyone, please. Dongfang Cangming extended his hand and gestured for them to enter. Jian Jinghong and the others glanced coldly at Dongfang Cangming. They were all injured and exhausted. It was impossible for them to resist Dongfang Cangming and the others. If they continued to enter the battlefield, they might still have a chance to survive. "Let's go," Jian Jinghong said in a low voice. The other sword sons also looked coldly at Dongfang Cangming. If they had the chance in the future, they would definitely take revenge 1,000 times over. "Ha, everyone, I'll have to trouble you," Dongfang Cangming said teasingly. That smug look on his face made Kong Kong want to stomp on his face. Jian Jinghong and the others had no choice but to enter the battlefield. As for the Neo-Demons, there would only be more and more. No one knew how long it would take to eliminate them. On the other side of the Neo-Demon horde, on top of a continuous sand dune, there was a row of densely packed figures. Hundreds of sky prides from the dark world stood there. A few sky prides stood at the front. They were obviously the leaders of this group of sky prides. The leader was a gentleman in green. He looked gentle and had a long sword on his back. He held up his hands and played with two metal balls. His aura was restrained. However, the heavenly talents of the dark world around him looked at him with a hint of respect in their eyes. This gentleman in green was the leader of the dark world's 7 bully lords, Moon Yeqing. Don't be fooled by his refined and easygoing appearance. When he really fought, it was enough to stun people. The Sky Prides standing beside him were also the Sky Prides from the 13 gangsters. Brother Mu, it looks like we will be able to take down this stronghold soon, said a burly man with a huge machete on his back. He was one of the 13 gangsters. His name was Zong Tuesday. We can't let our guard down before we take it down. This time, we, the Sky Prides from the Dark World, must take over the entire Sky Burial Island and make sure that Sky Prides from the South Horizon region have no way out, Moon Yeqing said calmly. Ha, Brother Mu is the leader of the 7 bully lords. With you around, isn't this stronghold a piece of cake, said another Sky Pride from the 13 gangsters. His name was Chao Lang. I'm just afraid that when the time comes, the 10 young masters from the South Horizon region will come to help. That will be troublesome, said the remaining Sky Prides hesitantly. He was also one of the 13 gangsters. His name was Lu Yuansheng. Ha, don't worry. Brother Mu is from the Tingxue house. Not only is he powerful, but he also has that person behind him, Chao Lang said with a hint of respect in his voice. Hearing this, Zong Tu and Lu Yuansheng's hearts skipped a beat. The Tingxue house's heaven weeping which had long been famous in the dark world. It was rumored that the heaven weeping which had fought with the War and Calamity twin stars. In the end, the War and Calamity twin stars joined forces but did not gain the slightest advantage. Instead, they were suppressed by the heaven weeping witch. It was precisely because of the existence of the heaven weeping witch that the Sky Prides from the dark world were full of confidence in this battle on Sky Burial Island. This time, they finally had a chance to completely wipe out all the Sky Prides from the South Horizon region. However, at this moment, Moon Yeqing shook his head slightly and said, "You guys are dreaming too much. Miss is indeed very powerful, but the South Horizon region is not a bunch of Sky Prides." The Tingxue house has found out a piece of gossip, said Moon Yeqing. What gossip? Zong Tu and the others asked. The successor of a hidden force from the South Horizon region has taken action. He wants to join forces with Di Haotian and the others to kill Mississippi. What? As soon as he said that, Zong Tu and the others were shocked and shocked. When they heard the words hidden forces, their eyes were filled with instinctive hatred. Chapter 1397. In the South Horizon region, the 3 great hidden forces didn't care about worldly affairs and rarely appeared. Not to mention the appearance of a successor. But now, a successor of one of the hidden forces had entered Sky Burial Island. This was quite a shock to the Dark World prodigies. At the same time, their eyes were filled with deep hatred. The reason why the Dark World was called the Dark World was definitely related to the 3 hidden forces. It was just that there were too many secrets and too much history. Young prodigies like Zong Tu had no idea what was going on. But the forces behind them had taught them to be enemies with the 3 hidden forces. It's no small matter if a successor of a hidden force makes a move, Chao Lang said in a low voice. That's right. That's why the young miss can't easily appear or make a move. Once she does, it's very likely that the successor of the hidden forces and Di Haotian will surround and kill her, Moon Yeqing said. After hearing this, Zong Tu and the others finally understood why Moon Yeqing still chose to be cautious. That was because the heaven weeping witch couldn't make a move as she pleased. Otherwise, she would be targeted. But even so, this stronghold can still be taken down. It looks like it's about time, Lu Yuansheng said with a faint smile. Moon Yeqing and the others looked over. Under the siege of the Neo-Demon Horde, more than half of the hundreds of prodigies fighting outside the stronghold had already fallen. The remaining half were merely struggling at death's door. However, the reactions of some of them caused Moon Yeqing and the others to be slightly surprised. Those prodigies must be the Sword Sons of the Sword Dynasty, the leader of the South Horizon region's 100 great dynasties. They're quite capable, Moon Yeqing said with a hint of praise. Although they were on opposing sides, Jian Jinghong and the others' performance was truly eye-catching. They couldn't help but admire them. In comparison, the prodigies of the Dongfang family, who had been hiding on the city wall, were dim. They're quite capable, but unfortunately, they're enemies. Zhong Tu and the others shook their heads. Let's make a move, Moon Yeqing said. Under the leadership of Jian Jinghong and the other sword sons, the prodigies of the South Horizon region gradually cleared out the Neo-Demon horde. So Moon Yeqing felt that it was about time to make a move. After he said that, Zhong Tu and the other top talents from the dark world behind him were all pumped up and ready to fight. Like a black torrent, they rushed towards the battlefield. On the other side, Jian Jinghong and the others were leading the remaining 100 or so heavens chosen from the South Horizon region in an attempt to wipe out the Neo-Demons. At this moment, Xuanlian looked into the distance and said, "This is bad. The genius of the dark world has made his move." Jian Jinghong and the others looked over and saw hundreds of dark world geniuses swarming toward them like locusts. Every heavenly talent from the dark world had an extremely powerful aura. The leading sky prides had even more powerful auras. That's the leader of the 7 bully lords, Moon Yeqing. Jian Jinghong's eyes narrowed. Moon Yeqing's strength was at the top of the dark world. As the leader of the 7 bully lords, his strength was not comparable to that of the 10 great childs. He might even be able to exchange blows with Huang Qianqiu and the Holy Yama. If Jian Jinghong and the others were in their peak condition, they might be able to fight Moon Yeqing. But now, their condition had fallen to the bottom of the valley. Not to mention Moon Yeqing, even the 13 gangsters around him were a huge threat to Jian Jinghong and the others. Just as Jian Jinghong was about to order everyone to retreat, Dongfang Sangming closed the gate of the stronghold tightly. Then, he stood on the city wall and shouted, "Everyone, we can't retreat. We, the heavens chosen from the South Horizon region, are not cowards. Everyone, we must fight to the end." Dongfang Sangming's words were filled with righteousness as if he was speaking the truth. However, Jian Jinghong, Mu Xingzu, and the others were enraged when they heard that. Dongfang Sangming was using his power to avenge his personal grudge and kill them. Dongfang Sangming, hurry up and open the gate. Jian Jinghong's eyes were bloodshot as he roared. Dongfang Sangming was indifferent. How can we, the heavens chosen from the South Horizon region, retreat? Don't worry, we will avenge you. Not to mention the others, even the heavens chosen from the Dongfang family beside Dongfang Sangming looked unnatural. This was too ridiculous. If they were in Dongfang Sangming's shoes, they would probably explode from anger. You despicable and sinister person, you deserve to die. Ling Emoshu roared. He could not wait to kill Dongfang Sangming with his sword. Dongfang Sangming's face darkened. What do you mean by this? I am giving you a chance to make a contribution. If you can survive, you will all be heroes. Pfft, why don't you be a hero yourself and let us be? Mu Xingzu also reprimanded. I don't care what you say. Dongfang Sangming ignored them. Jian Jinghong and the others' hearts sank when they saw Dongfang Sangming's attitude. They did not expect Dongfang Sangming to be so ruthless. At this moment, Moon Yeqing and the other heavens chosen from the dark world had also charged over. Jian Jinghong had no choice but to lead the remaining 100 over heavens chosen from the South Horizon region to fight. As a result, the heavens chosen from the South Horizon region were exhausted and could not withstand the attacks of the heavens chosen from the dark world. One by one, the heavens chosen from the South Horizon region fell into a pool of blood and screamed in pain. Even the other heavens chosen from the stronghold could not bear to see such a tragic scene. Brother Dongfang, why don't we help them? Although Moon Yeqing is strong, we still stand a chance. A heavens chosen from the Shiman clan hesitated for a while before speaking up. What do you know? How would we know what Moon Yeqing is capable of? We might be able to hold Moon Yeqing off with the help of the city wall and the array. However, if we help them, the entire stronghold will be destroyed. Can you bear the responsibility when the three young masters blame us? Dongfang Tsangming scolded coldly. The heavens chosen from the Shiman clan stiffened. Are we just going to watch those 100 over people die? That heavens chosen gritted his teeth. You have to consider the big picture. Why don't you join them? Dongfang Tsangming said coldly. That heavens chosen from the Shiman clan fell silent. On the battlefield, more than half of the 100 heavens chosen from the South Horizon region had fallen. Only 20 to 30 heavens chosen remained. Among them were Jian Jinghong and the other sword sons. They were surrounded by hundreds of heavens chosen from the dark world. Ha! The sword sons of the sword dynasty. I'm impressed. Zhong Tu clicked his tongue inside. Lu Yuansheng and Chao Lang also stared at Jian Jinghong and the others as if they were beasts in a cage. I didn't expect the sword sons of the sword dynasty to end up like this. Jian Jinghong smiled bitterly. He was not afraid of death, but he was resentful. He would not die in peace after being framed by Dongfang Tsangming. Although we are opponents, I still admire you. Don't worry, I won't torture you. Moon Yeqing waved her hands slightly. The hundreds of heavens chosen from the dark world attacked in unison. In an instant, a terrifying torrent surged toward Jian Jinghong and the others. It was as if they were about to be drowned. Goodbye, master. Mu Xingzu bit her lips so hard that they turned white. She was not afraid of death. She was only afraid that she would never see Yi Guqin again. However, just as the torrent was about to drown Mu Xingzu and the other heavens chosen, a green torrent of sword souls suddenly surged from the sky. It was as if the Milky Way from the 9 heavens was crashing down. At the same time, an extremely cold voice sounded out. How dare you touch the people of the Sword Dynasty? You are courting death. Chapter 1398. This cold shout was like the wrath of a deity king, echoing from the sky. The surging sword soul torrent collided with the Dark World Supreme Talent's torrent of moves with a loud bang. Violent waves of true qi swept out in all directions. Who is it? A glint flashed through the eyes of Moon Yeqing and the others. Their faces were filled with surprise. Even he felt an extreme sense of danger from the torrent of sword souls. He was the leader of the 7 bully lords. Anyone who could make him feel this way was definitely a prodigy of the same level. When Jian Jinghong and the others heard that voice, their eyes were instantly filled with extreme joy. It's Brother Yi. He's here. Jian Jinghong was extremely excited. He felt like he had been pushed to the brink of death. Mu Xingzu's eyes shone with unprecedented brilliance. She said in surprise, It's Master. I knew he wouldn't leave us alone. All the sword sons of the Sword Dynasty felt like they had survived a disaster. The hundreds of prodigies from the Dark World were shocked and dazed. They found it hard to imagine exactly what sort of expert was capable of withstanding all of their attacks by himself. However, that was not all. After the first round, the green sword soul torrent turned back and surged toward the hundreds of prodigies from the Dark World. Moon Yeqing immediately shouted, Everyone, be careful. Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, the 100,000 sword souls torrent had already turned around and attacked. Poof! 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 The sword souls pierced through the chests of the prodigies from the Dark World, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Even though the prodigies from the Dark World tried their best to defend, they could not withstand the sword souls' attacks. Apart from Moon Yeqing, Zhong Tu, and the others, only a few of the remaining prodigies from the Dark World could withstand the sword soul torrent. The vast majority of the people were pierced into bloody sieves by such attacks, dying with their bodies and Dao vanishing. After the sword soul torrent, only 40 or 50 prodigies from the Dark World were left. The rest of the prodigies from the Dark World were all killed. This scene caused Moon Yeqing's pupils to shrink slightly. Zhong Tu and the others could not believe what they were seeing. Their team of hundreds of Sky Prides had been reduced to just a few dozen in a single move by that Sky Pride. This was simply horrifying. Not to mention them, even Dongfang Sangming and the others who were standing on the city wall were stunned. An ominous feeling rose in Dongfang Sangming's heart. At this moment, everyone's gazes were focused on the distant horizon. That prodigy had yet to reveal himself, but with just one move, he had slaughtered hundreds of prodigies from the dark world. It was hair-raising and chilling. In the distance, a black-robed figure walked through the air. His black hair and robes fluttered in the wind. His face was handsome, and the lines of his face were distinct. However, there was a sense of coldness about him, like a piece of ice that would not melt even after 10,000 years. The 100,000 sword souls circled around him, as if they had transformed into a sword soul azure dragon, giving off an oppressive aura. One man and one sword, standing alone in the sky. 100,000 sword souls circled around. This aura made Moon Yeqing and the other sky prides from the dark world shudder. Moon Yeqing's eyes narrowed, and he muttered to himself, could he be one of the new 10 great young masters of the South Sky region, Sword Young Master? Tingxue House had an extremely strong intelligence network. Therefore, Moon Yeqing also knew that the South Sky region had produced a powerful new 10 great young master. However, Moon Yeqing did not take this to heart before. In his opinion, even a new 10 great young master's strength was probably at that level. However, judging from Yiguchen's current strength, Moon Yeqing knew he had greatly underestimated this sword young master's strength. His strength was definitely at the top even among the 10 great young masters. He could even fight against a sky pride of the 4 emperors. However, before Moon Yeqing and the others could be shocked by Yiguchen's strength, another figure appeared. Behind him, another round and fat figure appeared. It was Shimen Fugue. It's young master. He's here. On the stronghold's wall, the sky prides of the Shimen family were delighted when they saw Shimen Fugue. To be honest, Shimen Fugue's strength was indeed lower than the other young masters. Therefore, the Shimen family members were very worried about Shimen Fugue's safety. Now that they saw Shimen Fugue and Yiguchen together, they were surprised. When did young master get so close to Yiguchen? A Shimen family member muttered. Dongfang Sangming's expression was extremely ugly when he saw the situation. Putting Shimen Fugue aside, Yiguchen's aura already made Dongfang Sangming's heart pound. Although he was a sky pride of the Dragon Phoenix list, he was nothing compared to Yiguchen. However, although Dongfang Sangming was flustered, he still calmed down when he remembered that he had the support of the 3 young masters. So what if Yiguchen is here? Can he go against the orders of the 3 young masters? I'm just following orders. Dongfang Sangming comforted himself. On the other hand, Moon Yeqing and the others' hearts sank when they saw Shimen Fugue. Although Shimen Fugue was not as threatening as Yiguchen, he was still one of the top 10 young masters. He was more than enough to deal with the 13 gangsters. At that thought, Moon Yeqing was already considering if they should retreat. Yiguchen walked in the air and lowered his head slightly. He saw Jian Jingheng, Mu Xingzu, and the others with injuries on their bodies. They looked exhausted. He glanced coldly at the sky prides of the dark world and then looked at the stronghold wall. Dongfang Sangming and the rest stood there without a single trace of a fight on their bodies. How could Yiguchen not know what had happened when he saw this scene? Dongfang Sangming was just using Jian Jingheng and the others as cannon fodder. We'll settle the score with him later. Let's settle this first. Yiguchen looked coldly at Dongfang Sangming and then turned his attention back to the dark world. Do you sky prides of the dark world really want to die so badly? Yiguchen's tone was cold. He was like the god of death. Zhong Tu, Lu Yuansheng, and Chao Lang's expressions were ugly. Yiguchen was too ruthless. He killed hundreds of their sky prides in one move. They were completely terrified. Moon Yeqing took a deep breath and said, I didn't expect that the sword young master would come out of nowhere when we were so close to succeeding. We were too careless this time. However, you won't be so lucky next time. Everyone, retreat. As soon as Moon Yeqing finished speaking, her figure shot backwards. Chapter 1399. Moon Yeqing had been confident that victory was within his grasp. He would attack the stronghold and kill Dongfang Cangming and the others after killing Jian Jinghong and the others. Although Dongfang Cangming was a prodigy on the Dragon Phoenix list, he would not be able to withstand his attack. But now, all his plans had been ruined by Yi Guqin. He had killed hundreds of prodigies from the Dark World in one move. Now, Moon Yeqing only had a few dozen prodigies left. And most of them were injured. Aside from himself, Yi Guqin also had Shimen Fugui on his side. Although he was not particularly strong, he was still a force to be reckoned with. In addition, there was a group of prodigies from the South Horizon region at the stronghold. If they rushed out, Moon Yeqing's side would be attacked from both sides and might even be wiped out. At most, Moon Yeqing would be the only one who could escape. Therefore, Moon Yeqing decisively chose to retreat. At the same time, Zhong Tu, Chao Lang, and Lu Yuancheng retreated as well. When Yi Guqin saw this, he said coldly, "You hurt a prodigy from the Sword Dynasty and want to leave so easily? Do you think it's that easy?" He struck out with the universal annihilation. A terrifying sword ray fell from the sky and instantly killed more than 10 prodigies from the Dark World. Lu Yuancheng was also affected. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Moon Yeqing's eyes flashed when he saw this. He ignored them and continued to retreat. Zhong Tu and Chao Lang secretly gritted their teeth, but they still left in the end. The prodigies from the Dark World were more decisive and cold. "Save me." Lu Yuancheng's face was pale. When he saw Moon Yeqing and the others leave without looking back, his heart sank to the bottom. Yi Guqin's sword fell and took Lu Yuancheng's life. They ran fast, Yi Guqin muttered as he looked at Moon Yeqing and the others who had already fled. However, he also knew that as the leader of the 7 bully lords, Moon Yeqing definitely had some skills. It would not be easy for him to keep him here. The most important thing now was that Yi Guqin wasn't just angry about the Dark World's elites. The heavenly talents of the Dark World were already on opposing sides. No matter what they did, it would not be too much. However, the most hateful thing was that their own camp had turned the tables on them. Stabbing one's own people was the most hateful thing. "Are you guys alright?" Yi Guqin descended from the sky and looked at Jian Jinghong and the others. "Fortunately, Brother Yi, you came. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would be separated by life and death." Jian Jinghong smiled bitterly. "Woo woo, Master, if you had come any later, you wouldn't have been able to see Xingzhu." Mu Xingzhu threw herself into Yi Guqin's arms. She was usually firm and resolute. Only in front of Yi Guqin would she show her weak side. Yi Guqin patted Mu Xingzhu's head apologetically. He then looked at the group of sword sons. Jiang Fengmian, Ling Mo Shu, Ling Moyin, Suki Miyazaki, Han Lingxian, Kong Kong, Xuanlian, Su Zihao, and the others. Almost every one of them had injuries on their bodies. Every one of them was exhausted and at the end of their rope. This caused Yi Guqin's eyes to burn with a faint flame. At this moment, Mu Xingzhu said in an aggrieved tone, "Master, it's all Dongfang Cangming's fault. He is despicable and insidious. He forced us to fight the Dark World's elites to the death while he watched from the sidelines." Mu Xingzhu told Yi Guqin everything that had happened, including Dongfang Cangming's ugly face. The more she spoke, the colder Yi Guqin's eyes became. In the end, Yi Guqin said, "I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Dongfang Cangming is targeting all of you because of me." Yi Guqin and the Dongfang family were enemies. Jian Jinghong and the others were implicated because of him. "Brother Yi, even without you, Dongfang Cangming's insidious character would not have treated us well," Jian Jinghong said. "Don't worry. I'll take revenge for all of you." Yi Guqin turned and walked towards the stronghold. Shimen Fugui followed him. Jian Jinghong and the other sword sons, as well as the few surviving South Sky region sky prides, walked towards the stronghold with hatred in their hearts. Dongfang Cangming swallowed his saliva when he saw Yi Guqin and the others walking towards him. A hint of panic flashed across his eyes. However, when he remembered that he was from the Dongfang family and had the support of the three young masters, he calmed down a little. Ye Guqin took a step forward and stood in front of the stronghold's walls. Dongfang Cangming's face became unnatural when he sensed Ye Guqin's cold and murderous aura. He said, "Ye Guqin, I didn't expect you to come. Very good. You killed some of the Dark World's sky prides. It's considered a small contribution." A small contribution? Ye Guqin smiled. However, his smile was cold. That's right. The reason why we won this battle was because I, Dongfang Cangming, was able to devise a strategy and stick to my principles. Of course, you and the other sword sons of the Sword Dynasty also helped a little. Although it wasn't a big contribution, it wasn't a mistake either. Let's forget about Jian Jinghong and the others talking back to me. Dongfang Cangming waved his hand and said. His tone made it seem like he was very magnanimous. However, Jian Jinghong, Mu Xingzu, and the others were about to explode from anger when they heard what Dongfang Cangming said. They were fighting at the front lines while Dongfang Cangming was hiding in the stronghold and watching from the sidelines. In the end, he actually had the cheek to say that they won this battle because of him. It was fine if he took their credit, but wasn't it Ye Guqin who decided the outcome of this battle? If he didn't appear and turn the tide, the outcome would be unimaginable. Jian Jinghong and the others were not the only ones who felt this way. Even the members of the Dongfang family who were standing beside Dongfang Cangming felt their cheeks burning. Ha, interesting. Then can you open the city gate and remove the defensive array to let us in? Ye Guqin smiled faintly and said with an inexplicable tone. Dongfang Cangming hesitated and looked at Ye Guqin. He was still a little nervous. He was afraid that Ye Guqin would do something to him. Dongfang Cangming thought for a while and said, although the battle is over for now, it's hard to guarantee that the Dark World sky prides won't hide somewhere and take the opportunity to attack the stronghold. So, for safety's sake, you guys should wait outside for a few days. Once we confirm that there are no Dark World sky prides around, we will let you in, Dongfang Cangming said. After a few days, Dongfang Guangyao and the other young masters might return. At that time, he would have someone to rely on and naturally wouldn't be afraid of Ye Guqin. However, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Dongfang Cangming didn't dare to let Ye Guqin in. The defensive array outside the stronghold was not something that could be broken by ordinary people. When Ye Guqin heard this, his face darkened completely. Dongfang Cangming's actions could no longer be described as sinister. He was so shameless that there was no bottom line. The members of the Dongfang family are really detestable. Dongfang Ziyun is like that, and so are you. If that's the case, then I will have to step in personally. Ye Guqin stepped on the ground and soared into the sky. His aura exploded and he was like a sword god that could sweep through all directions. Ye Guqin, how dare you? Dongfang Cangming's eyes were filled with panic. He hurriedly ordered the members of the Dongfang family to raise the defensive array of the stronghold. Seeing this, Ye Guqin said coldly, while I'm breaking the array, you can think about how you're going to repent after you go to the netherworld. Chapter 1400. Ye Guqin's words were like the whispers of Azura, causing Dongfang Cangming's expression to change. Ye Guqin wanted to kill him. Ye Guqin, what do you mean by that? Are you trying to start an internal strife? Dongfang Cangming's eyes were filled with fear. He was no fool. Ye Guqin was able to kill Gu Xiaoyang back in the sacred imperial world. Dongfang Cangming was a genius on the Dragon Phoenix list, but he was no match for Gu Xiaoyang. If Ye Guqin could kill Gu Xiaoyang, killing Dongfang Cangming would be a piece of cake. Internal strife? Ha, trash like you will only be a burden if you stay in the South Sky region camp. It's better to get rid of you. As soon as Ye Guqin finished speaking, he unleashed the 3 ultimate holy swords and swept it towards the stronghold. Runes flashed on the ground of the stronghold. A protective light shield suddenly rose and covered the entire stronghold. Ye Guqin's sword radiance landed on the light shield, causing it to ripple like water. However, it was unable to break through. Dongfang Cangming's panicked heart relaxed when he saw that. Although the stronghold's formation wasn't ridiculously strong, it wasn't something that any single genius could break through easily. Dongfang Sangming crossed his arms in front of his chest. His expression changed from panic to playfulness. He sneered and said, "Ye Guqin, don't waste your efforts. Do you know that what you are doing now is tarnishing the reputation of the Sword Dynasty?" Ye Guqin glanced coldly at Dongfang Sangming. He didn't reply and continued to attack. Jian Jinghong said coldly, "Those neo-demons were defeated under the leadership of the Sword Son of the Sword Dynasty. The hundreds of geniuses from the Dark World were also killed by Brother Yi. If sacrificing so much is tarnishing the reputation of the Dongfang family, then the Dongfang family doesn't even have the right to be tarnished." Jian Jinghong's 3 sentences were like thunder that exploded in all directions. In the stronghold of the city, some of the Sky Prides looked slightly ashamed. They were indeed in the stronghold, watching Jian Jinghong and the others fight to the death. On the other hand, Dongfang Sangming and some of the geniuses from the forces that had a grudge against Ye Guqin looked disapproving. No matter what, Ye Guqin is attacking the stronghold now. If this isn't a rebellion, then what is? When the 3 masters return, they will definitely punish Ye Guqin. Dongfang Sangming said fearlessly. He wanted to delay until Dongfang Guangyao and the others arrived, and then let them deal with Ye Guqin directly. As for Dongfang Sangming, he would be safe as long as he stayed in the foothold. At this moment, Shimen Fugue stepped out and said, "Dongfang Sangming, even if you won't let him in, can't you let me in?" Dongfang Sangming's expression changed when he heard Shimen Fugue's words. Although Shimen Fugue was a bit of a drag among the 10 great young masters, he was still a 10 great young master. Coupled with the fact that he had the Shimen family behind him, even Dongfang Sangming did not dare to offend him. However, he could not let Shimen Fugue in now. If he let him in, he would have to remove the formation, and that would be the same as letting Ye Guqin in. After thinking for a while, Dongfang Sangming said, "I'm sorry, young Master Shimen. Please bear with it for now. I will only let you in after I confirm that there are no more geniuses from the dark world outside." Dongfang Sangming, you. Shimen Fugue raised his eyebrows, and his chubby face was cold. At this moment, some of the geniuses from the Shimen family in the foothold saw what was happening and quietly approached the core of the formation. Then, they rushed forward to remove the formation. "Stop them!" Dongfang Sangming shouted when he saw what was happening. The rest of the geniuses from the Dongfang family went forward to stop them. However, although most of the geniuses from the Shimen family were stopped, some of them were still affected. However, there were still a few people who managed to affect the defensive formation, causing its defensive power to decrease by more than half. "Are all of you rebelling?" Dongfang Sangming's face was cold. Even if he offended the Shimen family, he could not remove the defensive formation now. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. At the very least, he would not be able to guarantee his own safety. "Damn it, we almost succeeded." Outside, Jian Jinghong, Mu Xingzu, and the rest sighed when they saw what was happening. They could not wait to get rid of Dongfang Sangming. After this incident, Dongfang Sangming was cautious and ordered the Dongfang family to guard the area around the core of the formation. Dongfang Sangming heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Ye Guqin. "Ye Guqin, don't waste your time. Even if the defensive formation is weakened by more than half, you will not be able to break it alone." Dongfang Sangming's words were filled with mockery and ridicule. In his opinion, Ye Guqin's method of wasting his time was extremely laughable. "Oh, are you so sure?" Ye Guqin held the 9-dragon thunder prison in his hand as a dark light flashed across his eyes. Dongfang Sangming chuckled. "Ye Guqin, if you can break this formation alone, Dongfang Sangming, will leave my life here for you to take." Ye Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile when he heard that. He unleashed his strength at the 7th level of the divine dwelling realm and his true chi was 10 times stronger. He pointed the sword in his hand to the sky and a terrifying sword aura began to spread around his body. He had also become one with the sword at the same time. Above the 9-dragon lightning prison sword, there was a terrifying sword light. What sword move is that? I don't know. I've never seen Yiguchin use such a sword move before. Yiguchin's move had shocked countless sky prides. Even Dongfang Cangming was slightly taken aback as he felt his heart palpitate. However, he still comforted himself. No, Yiguchin is just deliberately mystifying himself. How can he break this formation alone? A storm of sword chi seemed to have formed around Yiguchin in the sky. He once again used a sword move that he hadn't used in a long time. Dugu's 9 swords, breaking sword move. Yiguchin's sword vibrated as he used the sword demon's unique sword move. A shocking sword light that lit up the sky pierced through the air and landed on the defensive light barrier. At this moment, everyone's gazes seemed to have been snatched away by that dazzling sword light. At this moment, all of the sky prides could feel their hair standing on end. They knew that they would be pierced through if they were to face this move. The breaking sword move of the 9 swords of Dugu was a move that could break all techniques. It was the most suitable move to pierce through any defense. Boom! The breaking sword move's sword light landed on the defensive light barrier and caused it to tremble violently like never before. No, it can't be. Dongfang Cangming's heart was trembling slightly. However, cracks started to spread from the center of the collision. They spread rapidly and more than half of the light barrier was filled with cracks. In the end, Dongfang Cangming's face was filled with disbelief. With a loud bang, the defensive light barrier shattered into countless specks of light.